There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Everybody, and welcome to episode 40 of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. I am your host, Brian Miller, and I'm very glad you decided to join us to talk about our favorite thing in the world yet again this week, Star Wars. I'm going to let everybody know right off the bat, I'm going to be taking a back seat in this episode because I've got a little bit of a throat thing going on. But not to worry, because we've still got two awesome Star Wars experts here with us tonight. I've also got Stephen Hall with me. How's it going, Stephen?
Good. How are you doing, Brian?
Doing all right. And I've also got, finally, I've been trying to get him on an actual episode of the podcast for years now. We finally got Richard J. from across the pond with us. How's it going, Jay?
Not too bad, my friend. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Very, very cool to have you on finally. JG wasn't able to join us tonight. He had some things going on, and same with Usif, which no big deal. I tell these guys family comes first, priority. So that is cool. We've got a little bit to talk about this week. Before we get into it, though, before I let these guys kind of run with the show this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mobile app real quick, and then I will shut up and let these guys run it. The Star Wars Canon Library mobile app is finally out on Google Play. It is available now, coming to iOS spring of 2021. You guys can go on there and check that out. It's completely free right now. There's a full color-coded timeline, links to purchase everything. There's a community page, links to podcasts, all kinds of stuff on there. So definitely go check that out. So without further ado, guys, do you want to take it from here and run with it?
Okay, sure. I think before we go any further, I think we all agree it's the sad news of the passing of David Charles Prowse, MBE, English bodybuilder, weightlifter, and character actor. 85 years of age, passed away recently. One of the last members of the original Star Wars crew. There's not many left now. We've only got a handful now: Harrison Ford, Anthony Daniels, and Mark Hamill. And he has been ill for quite some time, though, Dave. Lovely fella. Never got to meet him directly, but I have spoken to him through the means of somebody else. Seems like a really nice guy, down to earth. What a lot of people outside the UK may not know is that from the 70s up till the mid-90s, he was also the guy who would tour the schools around London, the rest of England, some parts of Scotland and Wales, teaching children how to safely cross the roads, stop, look, listen. He was known as the Green Cross Code Man, and he was a big, imposing figure in some of the smaller, more independent and broadcasted, syndicated British TV shows, like Doctor Who, for example. Played a lot of background characters in Doctor Who over the years. And some, also, he was brought on to train Christopher Reeves for the role of Superman. He was Christopher Reeves' gym buddy.
Really?
Lobbied it for himself.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think with, Prowse, there's been so many different actors that have, brought Vader to life, whether it be through voice with James Earl Jones, but, with David Prowse, I think just seeing that physical, the way that he walked, the way that he moved, that is what brought Vader to life. It was a mixture of a variety of things, and I think he needs a lot of recognition for the way that his actions, physicality brought, Vader to life and made him that intimidating figure that you never saw underneath the mask for those first 6 years of the original trilogy there.
Yeah, Vader's, the character is unique in itself. That you got James Earl Jones, David Prowse, two halves of the greatest movie villain of all time, two halves of one man, and it's a shame we've had to say goodbye to one.
Yeah, you guys were talking about his body language and stuff too, and it's amazing how much you can portray through a character. You don't even see his face. You don't even hear his voice. You know what I mean? But like you said, he brought so much to the character, and he was the one that brought the presence, the physical presence of the character. Even though he wasn't involved in anything like Vader Immortal, the 3D, the VR experience, when you're playing that, even with just knowing that it's Darth Vader, when he's standing in front of you in that game, you can feel the mass of him standing in front of you. You can feel that bulk, and it all goes back to what David Prowse brought to him as a character. Um, and I was lucky enough. I never got to meet him either, but I've got an autograph in there, courtesy of Jay. That as soon as I found out he was gone, I came in here and saluted the picture because, man, that's a rough one. But like you guys said, who do we still have left from the original group?
I mean, we've obviously got Jeremy Bulloch, but the main ones are Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, Ian McDiarmid, and Jeremy Bulloch. The main ones that have. All Star Wars characters have a legacy. Even Hammerhead Man, Prune Face Man, Walrus Man. They've all got legacies, but the real main characters that everybody thinks of.
And we're coming up to the 50th anniversary in a few years, of A New Hope, and so we're getting to this point where there will come a time when we'll watch A New Hope and those actors are no longer with us. And I think it's very important that hopefully when conventions open back up, whenever we get back to some sense of normalcy, we take advantage of, if we get a chance to meet these actors or at least thank them for their contributions to start this franchise that we love so much. I think we need to take advantage of that and enjoy the actors and their performances while they're still around.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford comes to Wichita once a year. Toward the end of January, beginning of February, he always makes Wichita news. They're always like, "Oh, Harrison Ford's back in town," and every weekend I find out he's in town, me and Kirsty go spend most of the weekend up there, hoping to just run into him somewhere. But so far it hasn't happened. But if it ever does, I'm gonna literally die in front of the guy. I will, because I that's just a dream. Matter of fact, and it sounds stupid and stalkerish and creepy, and I'm gonna own it, because the last time he was in Wichita, we didn't get to see him obviously, but we found out there's a certain diner that he went to. And we were in Wichita. It was like late at night. I think we just walked out of seeing him. I think we might have just walked out of seeing Endgame, actually. And we went to that diner, and I walked up and put my hands on the door handles that I know he'd walked through. And I was like, God, I feel like I'm closer to him now, knowing he was here. But it's stupid. But yeah, it was kind of funny. So I'm hoping this year maybe might be the lucky year we run into him.
I was gonna say it would be nice, especially after the whole. Debacle of 2020, where we've been through across the globe, various forms of isolation and people separated from family. It just makes me thankful that I got to see a lot of the cast back in 2016 at the London celebration. I had a high five with Peter Mayhew as he rode past on his mobility scooter. I had a small chat with Kenny Baker in his wheelchair. I mean, at the time when you're seeing all this, it doesn't really sink in until after the fact, where you're seeing this 6-foot-plus giant with no kneecaps, reduced to wandering around in a mobility scooter, going out for a cigarette. The same with Kenny Baker, confined to a wheelchair for walking, for walking distances that were too much for him at his age, and just having that brief chat and making jokes and asking Mark Hamill out for a drink, scratching his beard, telling him it feels like the underside of an Ewok's crotch to the selfie photograph that we took together to getting kissed by Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, you got to tell that story, man.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite stories. You have to tell it.
Okay. So with the photographs, everything was running late, as they always tend to do. These things, massive organizations, massive crowd, these things ran late. Me and my friend, Jonna, we were the last two in line to get a photograph with Mark Hamill for that particular slot on the day. And I turned to Jonna, my friend. I said, look, I've had more or less a script planned out in my head to get through this, because I don't want to just be another fan that just says, oh, I love you, Mark, and then just gets wished off to the one side. I want to say something that at least for the rest of the day he would remember. So we started having a quick chat. I grew my beard since August 2015. Never had facial hair prior to that, aside from sideburns. I advised him, said, look, I grew this to support you, and you shaved yours off when you did the Flash. You shaved yours back off when you did Trickster. That's copping out. You should have kept it. And he laughed, and I asked him how Mary Lou, his wife, feels about the beard. I put my arm around him. I said, "Oh, can I tickle the beard?" He said, "Yeah, go on." And I said, "Oh, that feels like the underside of an Ewok's crotch." And he barely laughed. He barely laughed, and the photographer snapped the photo at that moment. Now, knowing Mark, if you see his Twitter, he's always posting selfies. So I asked, "Would you mind if I took a selfie with you?" And he said, "Sure, shoot the picture." And the woman in front of me, one of the attendants for the company, slapped my phone out of my hands, and it went skidding across the floor. Now, if the photographs wasn't allowed, that's perfectly fine. I'm not there to cause any trouble for anybody. So I picked up my phone and I walked off, and Mark came up behind me and he says, "They've been doing this all day, getting on my nerves. Just shoot the picture." So I shot the selfie and I said to him, "Mark, do you fancy going for a drink after this?" Because I can't drink during celebration. I said, "That's all right, Mark. I got your timetable here. I know what time you finish. You finish on Sunday. I'll come back and I'll meet you on Sunday. We'll go out there for a pint." He laughed and he went out, he laughed. I knew that was my time done. I made the man laugh. I did something different to everybody else who I was watching. Were just going up, getting a photo and leaving. I was done. Mission accomplished. I left, picked up my photograph, and as Mark was walking back around the booth, he walked outside to the front, screamed, "Does anybody want a selfie?" in his joker voice, and got pulled by Carrie Fisher as he was coming back into the booth. So because him and Carrie Fisher were having a conversation, I had my photograph in my hand, and I was waiting for my friend to have his photograph taken. He has the photograph taken. We then leave. Carrie Fisher's outside. Now, I'm right behind Carrie Fisher, so much so that Gary, her dog, is looking at me with his tongue hanging out of his mouth, looking at me. He's aware of my presence. I'm that close behind him. And I said, "Excuse me, Carrie, can I have my photograph taken with you?" And this was rock and roll. This just shows how much Carrie was in with the fans. She turned to me. She said, "Yeah, if you want your photograph taken with me, you got to go over to that booth, pay $200, okay, get an appointment slot, and then you can have your photograph taken with me. But can I have my photograph taken with you? I don't have my cell. It's in my hotel room. So can you take it on your cell and tweet me the picture?" So I got my phone out, which I thought was great because she knew that these companies were just ripping people off. And I think she was, to say angry, I think would be an understatement. I think she was livid. She just decided to walk into the audience. So I take my phone out, take my mobile phone out, my cell. I flip the picture out to get a selfie. We're cheek to cheek, and I'm puckering up for a kiss, into the camera. She does the same. She grabs my head, turns me to the side, smacks me right on the lips. This is where, as a bloke, I'm supposed to be the macho man. Oh, yeah. I'm supposed to be that guy and say, "Oh, yeah, I kissed her back. Yeah, I pulled it in towards me." Nah, panicked. 33 years of age, I panicked. I dropped my phone onto the floor. Again, second time of the day, it's been colliding across the floor. And I never got to take that photograph. All I had was a room of people screaming as she was kissing me. And that wasn't long before she passed away, because the 2016, that was the year that Rogue One came out. This was April, May time, I believe the celebration was, and she passed away in December.
Man,
She's only booked 2, I think, at the time. She passed away.
That's my favorite story of anybody meeting a celebrity ever.
It does.
I love the humanity of it.
It's a moment that, like, my friend just looked at me. My friend's a little bit older than me. He saw Star Wars. I'm 35. He saw Star Wars back in its original run in the cinema. Every time he buys me a drink, I still check to see if he's spat in it first before he's giving it to me. Little things, in-house jokes. I can sit there and watch Empire Strikes Back, and as soon as Han moves in to kiss Leia, I'm like, "Oi, hands off the missus. That's my girl, not yours." Just little jokes, and me and my friends will just laugh at it. Just simple little things, memories that I'll take with me until I get to such an age where I start to lose my memory. But that's going to be with me for a long, long time.
What's cool about that is you got something out of that no other fan can really say that they've gotten. Everybody else has pictures and autographs, but even though you don't have a photo of it, like who cares? That was more for you than anybody else, you know? And
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm sure she's done that with. I'm not just
Oh
not to
yeah.
not to speak bad about my ex, but I'm sure she was like that with a lot of people. You could feel that like enthusiasm coming off her. You know that now, you know she knows that she was later in her career. She wasn't going to be playing your typical Hollywood leading ladies, and she hadn't for quite some considerable time by that point. So she knew that look, this is the last big shot in my career that I'm going to have, and she just enjoyed it. She just enjoyed it, and it was great. And she was taking photographs with I don't know how many people. After that, I left the auditorium. I went for a drink, and Warwick Davis came whizzing past on his Segway. So I had a picture with old Warwick as well, who was happy to oblige. So and then I sat down and had a drink with my friend, and we got a little bit tipsy after that.
But yeah, guys, I guess David Prowse is gone now, so it's heartbreaking. And honestly, I wasn't gonna bring up this part of it, but he kind of got the raw end of the deal when it came to Lucasfilm and kind of the way I don't want to dwell on it, but kind of the way he was treated when it came to convention circuits and stuff. And I don't know if did you guys watch that documentary? I don't remember what exactly it was called. Somebody put together a reshoot for that final scene in Return of the Jedi when the helmet came off, and they actually made him up in the makeup. Did you guys catch that?
I've not seen any documentary. No, I've seen plenty of fan edits where they pasted Hayden Christensen's face on, and it was a really poor job of it. But I tell you one thing though, just to lead off that, I did see some behind the scenes photos of David Prowse in his suit for Return of the Jedi, and although his hair is a little shorter, it's the exact same style as Anakin's was in Episode 3. It was long. Okay, Anakin's hair was a little bit wavy, a little bit curly. Dave's hair was wavy, but it didn't look like Anakin looked like he had a lot of mousse in his hair. Straight from the 80s with a lot of mousse. David was more like a Brill Crew kind of guy, but it was parted on the side, a little bit like on the side like Anakin's was. It was long. It was down to like the base of his neck. Wasn't as long as Anakin's. Anakin's was like shoulder length, but collarbone length. But it was nice to see Prowse unmasked with a hairstyle that was very reminiscent of a young Hayden from Episode 3.
Do either of you know in Empire Strikes Back when Vader's in his chamber and the helmet's off and we see it from the back? Would that be Prowse there, or was that someone else with the bald cap on? Any idea what that scene?
I have no idea.
Because I bet he always assumed, I'm gonna whenever they do take off the mask, whenever it's part 2 or part 3 or whatever, that it'll be my face. And I think he was probably, obviously caught off guard when they hired Sebastian Stan as the face of Anakin.
Okay, I found the documentary. It was called "I Am Your Father." I'm
aware of it.
Yeah,
I've not seen it.
I caught it on Hulu one time, long time ago, or I wasn't that long ago, but it was a while back. And I remember watching that, and they asked him if he would be interested in reshooting that famous scene from Return of the Jedi, where the mask comes off, and they put him up in the makeup and everything. And they said, but for legal reasons, they weren't allowed to show the scene during the documentary. But apparently, everybody on set was just losing their minds, getting emotional over it because of how cool it was, and he even expressed how grateful he was for the opportunity to finally have his face shown.
And it was just nice to see so many people from the Star Wars community, behind the scenes and in front of the camera, that showed their outpouring of love for him the past week here on social media, and even seeing George Lucas come out and make a statement. And we don't hear from him as much, so it was nice to see Lucas make a statement about it, an actor that they worked with on 3 films.
Yeah.
But let's move on to something a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Exciting. We'll just use the word exciting. The Cassian Andor series has finally been confirmed to be filming in London right now. Guys, this is a series that I'm really excited for. Between this and Obi-Wan, obviously I'm excited for Obi-Wan, but everything else, I'm excited for this one. Mainly due to Cassian's line in Rogue One about how they've all done things they're not proud of, and they've done assassinations and all these other missions. I want to see that in the spy thriller series. What do you guys think of this Cassian Andor?
Steve, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think, with Cassian Andor, I think we're going to follow him. And I think we're going to see so many other new and familiar characters from the, focusing on the start of the Rebel Alliance. I would love to see it cross over with Rebels and maybe do like a live action version of some of these early cells and how they came together. I think it's just going to be a different tone. And that's one of the things that I love that Star Wars, even though it has the same kind of look and feel throughout all these different stories, whether it's comics, TV, movies, I think it's going to be awesome to see, a different tone and maybe again, kind of maybe breaking into some Imperial hideouts. I mean, such a time period that has so much wealth and opportunities. What about you, Richard? What are you looking forward to with it?
Well, one of the things I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing, and unless you read the novel Rogue One, you would not have picked this up from the movie. And it's the line from Cassian. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. It's a throwaway line, but when you read the novel, you find that he fought in the Confederates of Independent Systems. He fought in the very army to bring down the Republic. He was fighting with the Trade Federation. So I would, like we got on Mandalorian, we've got flashbacks of the Clone Wars. We see him as a foundling, and we see Death Watch rescue the man Din Djarin. I would like to see things like that. I want to see more of Cassian Andor's backstory. Here's a man whose main mission in life was to destroy, to rebuild the very thing he helped destroy. Better the devil you know, I guess. But that I'm looking forward to seeing, because my jaw dropped when I read in the book that this guy was fighting against the Republic, and here he is in the Rebel Alliance trying to reestablish it. That was amazing, and one of my highlights of the character. And I'd gone into Rogue One thinking it would be a little bit like, it's going to be a little bit like Force Awakens. They said it's a war movie. It's not going to be a war movie. I thought we'd be very happy, very jovial, cracking a lot of jokes. And I won't lie to you, I walked into Rogue One out with half a bottle of Jack Daniels beside me, and I sobered up pretty quick when he assassinated another rebel informant. When he assassinated him right at the very beginning of the movie, when he took him out, this is not my Rebel Alliance. This is something different. And I'm looking forward to seeing, because the Rebel Alliance have always been, the poster boy has always been Luke, hope, the innocence of humanity. And here we got somebody who sacrificed just as much, if not more. And this guy's doing all the dirty work that the poster boy doesn't get to see. And that I'm looking forward to see. What else is he doing? Remember the film? He was sent to assassinate Galen Erso and lie to Jyn in her face to say, "Nah, I'm not going to. It's all going to be fine." And he goes to assassinate him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be like without that emotional connection to Jyn, where he doesn't assassinate Galen. So it could go in any way. Is it going to be heavy on the politics side? We're going to get more politics in there. That would be interesting. Or is it just going to be episode after episode of just one story missions where he's sent on an assignment to take out this one person? Or is it going to be a linked story where there's going to be consecutive story arcs, 3 to 4 episodes, or a whole season story arc? I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. But
I hope it bridges that gap between the prequels and the original trilogy, because it's in that time frame. I don't know how far back it's going to go, but seeing some flashbacks, like you mentioned, of the Clone Wars, like imagine if we had a mixture of Clone Wars flashbacks plus like the type of setting that we see in Solo and Rogue One leading into A New Hope. I think there's potential.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's not just a one season, one and done like Kenobi's going to be. So I think they're going to leave some doors open to hopefully maybe go back 3 or 4 years before Rogue One and A New Hope.
Hopefully, yeah, because I mean, based on what I interpreted from reading the book, he was 6 when the Clone Wars started. So, if they go back that far, you've got the Clone Wars all the way up to seconds before A New Hope, when the Death Star takes out Scarif. So we have his entire life to go through. So so exciting.
I could see it being called like Star Wars Rebellion or something else in line with Rebels. And I mean, we could see a young Leia, we could see C-3PO and K2SO. There's so much potential in this series that, after seeing what Mandalorian has done over 2 seasons, nothing's going to surprise me at this point. I'm ready for it all to happen.
Yeah, they're not pulling any punches, these shows, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, the one thing with the TV shows or whether it's live action or it's animated, the one thing that every fan has been saying, whether they like the show or not, the one thing that every fan has been saying, near enough every fan, is that these are, you can tell that these are going to the story group to say to Leyland Chi, okay, to Dave Filoni, what can we do here? How does this fit in here? Does this make sense? Whereas the movies, I'm afraid, didn't kind of follow that. It didn't appear to me that the writers and the directors of the movies consulted with the story group as much as they should have. I mean, and I'm not even talking about plot. I'm just talking about simple little things. This is a Sith Wayfinder. No, it's not. It's a Sith holocron. This is holocron. Call it is a holocron.
It's obvious with the series they're planning stuff out years in advance. I mean, Mandalorian's already proved that twice over now.
Rebels did it.
Yeah, Rebels did
Apprentice,
it.
Rebels.
Yeah,
When everyone was thinking, oh, is that Ahsoka? Yes, it is. Okay, so is she dead? No, that's symbolic. She is dead. She's walking off into heaven or to Jedi heaven or to Jedi hell. That's just her walking off into the sunset down the stairs. No, it's not. David planned from the get-go that Ezra was going to pull her out from the World Between Worlds in season 4.
Yeah, absolutely. They're planting these seeds. They're planting all these seeds. I mean, season 1 of Mandalorian. We had the gunslinger episode. We had the frog lady in the Mos Eisley Cantina in season 1, and all of this stuff starting to come full circle. Yeah, man. I think they're finally getting it through their heads that when they have a plan and they stick to the plan and they execute the plan, that the fans really latch onto that. They're attracted to that, and that's what works.
Payoff, absolutely. And think about how lucky we are that this is the first year since 2015 that we have not had a Star Wars film to go and look forward to. And the fact that we are instead really kind of, if you think about it, 6 out of 8 parts into a very long, exciting film in Mandalorian season 2. And the way that they're broken up into these episodes, like, this is film quality when it comes to the production, when it comes to the soundtrack, when it comes to the acting. Like, I think Disney Plus especially is going to focus more and more on these projects and give us high quality, whether it's for Star Wars or Marvel, these long form serialized productions instead of just a 2-hour event film. Like, they'll still do films, but I think this is the future of Disney Plus, because they're realizing, look at the amount of people that are following this every week, and it's like going to the movies every week almost.
Yeah, and they can pump out so much content so fast, because I think like you just said, we're 3/4 of the way through a Star Wars movie at this point. By the time it's over, it's gonna be the season to binge. It's gonna be 3.5 hours to sit and binge the whole thing. You're looking at a 3.5 hour long Star Wars movie every year.
And it's not just that, Brian, but you go to see a Star Wars movie in December, you talk about it for a week or two, unless you're us, and we talk about it all year. But now you're expanding the conversation to an 8 weeks out of the year, and eventually probably 16 when you get multiple shows going throughout the year.
Yeah. And look at the audience that it brings in. You've got, your general fan or, your girlfriend's friend may not be interested in purchasing a ticket to see the film. But how many times have you seen people talk about The Mandalorian at work and they're not even legitimate? They wouldn't legitimately call themselves Star Wars fans. They wouldn't even call themselves a casual fan. It's just, oh, my boyfriend watches that, or my girlfriend watches that. I watched that episode. Oh, the little baby Yoda is really cute. It's got a name, Grogu. Little Grogu is really, really cute, And I mean, look, let's look at the marketing for Disney Plus. Aside from Mulan, which is a new film that Disney Plus wanted to promote, the only other marketing that Disney Plus has had that I can think of, aside from Mulan, has been Mandalorian. And they've been plugging that for about a year and a half. Disney Plus's success is all riding, it's not all riding, but it's heavily reliant on the Star Wars franchise, even though the movie's successfully commercially, yes, and critically as well, divisive among the fans, but then it's a Star Wars film. It's always going to be divisive among the fans. And so is The Mandalorian. There are some fans that just don't, it's just not for them, and that's cool. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Come talk to me and tell me what it is. I'd like to know why it wasn't for you.
Well, Richard, like you said, it's bringing in a lot of new fans that wouldn't necessarily see the films, and this might be their introduction gateway to Star Wars. I read an article yesterday that said the amount, like the viewership of Clone Wars has spiked, on multiple occasions in the past year that Disney Plus has been open. It was first launched last November, and then around the same time that with these episodes with Bo Katan and with Ahsoka, like more and more people are seeing these characters for the first time, and they now want to go back and be a part of the conversation, go back and learn about these characters.
That is exactly what I did. Because when the Clone Wars came out, for me, back in 2003, I had the Samurai Jack Clone Wars. You remember the one from 2003, the little 5-minute shorts on Cartoon Network? 2 seasons, 1 hour each season. When 2008 came out, the Clone Wars came out, as we know it now, I wasn't really that interested. I saw a couple of episodes from season 1, didn't like it at all, didn't bother with it after that. I walked into a shop one day, bought a couple of films. So it's a local shop in the UK called HMV. And if you buy it and you spend so much, then usually on the counter where the cashier is, it's usually a rack of some CDs, DVDs, or Blu-rays. And it's the case of like, well, if you spend X amount, you can pick up one of these for $1, right? £1 or $1. And I saw Star Wars Lego. I think it was Yoda. I can't remember what it was, Yoda Adventure, something like that. But I also saw Spark of the Rebellion, the Rebels DVD, the first and second episode. So I thought, okay, I'll pick that up for £1. I'll give it a watch. Didn't think much of it. Put it on. Thought, wow, I really enjoyed that. And there's a lot of things that I can identify in the background and even the foreground as Ralph McQuarrie concept art that was never used, or was later altered to such a degree that it didn't match or didn't resemble Chewbacca for one. Didn't resemble the concept art by the time it was finished. The finished design, we know what the finished design looked like, but the concept art for Chewbacca looks like Zeb or Lasat. So I, of course, being someone who, looks through the concept art books of Ralph McQuarrie as well, I was able to pick those points up. And one of my friends came over, one night we had a few drinks. I looked into Rebels. It was season 1, I think, finished by that point. And found them all on YouTube. We sat there, we got a little bit tipsy. And we got to the episode in season 1 where Ahsoka pops in. Now, I knew who Ahsoka was, and I just wasn't that fussed, although I thought it was cool to see her. My friend, who didn't like the Clone Wars at all, wasn't a big fan of the prequels. He's a lot older than me. He saw the originals back in the day, and he freaked out when he saw Ahsoka. He absolutely freaked out. So I thought, okay, I need to watch the Clone Wars. So it was quite close to Christmas time. So I wrote my letter to Santa. Dear Santa, please, I've been a good boy. Bring me the Clone Wars. And would you know, the fat man delivered. He got me the box set of the Clone Wars. And I sat and I watched it. Season 1, yeah, we all know it's a bit of a struggle, season 1. Season 2, it finds its feet. But season 3, we've been talking to Usef behind the scenes where Usef is going through this now. Season 3, get that Mortis arc under your belt. It is mind-blowing. And from season 3 onwards, everything is just stellar. It's just magnifique. And then we come to season 2 of Rebels, where the trailers come out, which is when I started getting, following this channel. And then we had the trailers for, my name is Rex. I thought would come out of time with the Clone Wars. That. And then I had the feels for that because I just sat through the Clone Wars. And then seeing Ezra and Kanan, where they jump up on top. I don't think it might have been an AT-AT. And they cut the dome off the top. And Rex, it just cuts back to Rex and he just looks up with a smile and says, like the Jedi of old. And I just felt every hair on my body stand up. And I couldn't believe how much I'd gone from dismissing the Clone Wars to actively feeling the Clone Wars in a completely separate show. So your point there is exactly the same as what happened to me. In regards to the Clone Wars, never had any interest watching it. I understand this is what happened in the Clone Wars. Yeah, there was a big war. Not really too fast on the animation style. Okay, it is what it is. It's for children, and that's cool. I don't have to watch it. But
just think about like what the Clone Wars went through from a production point of view. Like you start off with that film in theaters, which like should have caused the show to almost end right there, the way that it came out. And then, just like you said, by season 3, it picked up, and they knew what they were doing, and they were getting better with their art design and everything. And the fact that then when Disney, bought Star Wars, and it canceled it on Clone Wars at first, and then Netflix picked it up for the episodes that were already in production for the season 6, and then finally the fact that Disney Plus comes out and says, we're gonna start off and give you a chance to finish your story. Like, Dave Filoni had the chance. He basically was canceled twice in a way, and then got a chance to still finish it, while also getting a chance to wrap up some loose threads and story plots in Rebels, of course.
Yeah, and I was there at the panel well, it wasn't even a panel in 2016. I mean, you watch the celebrations now, and the animation departments, they sit on the same big stage as Mark Hamill will sit on. But back in 2016, this is before Thrawn came in and really smacked the faces of the fans and said, right, you want Star Wars, you're getting Star Wars. Have Thrawn. But before that, they were just sat in a small hall with a cloth behind them, a drape. And on the other side of the drape was stalls and other activities. And it was me and about 50 other people sat there, him, Pablo Filoni, Pablo Hidalgo, and Ashley. And they were talking, all concept art, and talking of what you would have expected to see in the Clone Wars. And that's when he tells Ahsoka about the Siege of Mandalore. That's when he tells Ashley about the Siege of Mandalore. And he shows, like, all this concept art, and Ahsoka is sticking a lightsaber through a door, and there's lightning going up the lightsaber. And on the other side of the door is Sidious with his hand on the door, sending bolts of lightning up the lightsaber. And Ashley sat there, she's crying, and then she's getting tearful, she's getting emotional. And then we see then when he talks about the Siege of Mandalore, and you see little sketches, Dave Filoni sketches of all the clone troopers with Ahsoka's face on them, and she's bawling her eyes out. Something that she thought she'd never see, never experience. And, it's through the power of #Save the Clone Wars that it happened. So if there's one thing I would like fans to take away from this is that go to Twitter, voice your concerns, but do it positively. Look what happened when we did it positively. #Save the Clone Wars. It took a couple of years, but #Clone Wars saved.
Yeah, no, I remember watching that panel live. I didn't actually realize you were there when they did that. Like you said, it wasn't really much of a panel, but yeah, I remember watching that and him talking about how she rode off on a wolf, and all the clone troopers got in this forest of trees, and they look up and realize it's the long legs of a wolf, and they start going nuts on all of them. Like, God, that would be so cool to see. And then in 2018, when they announced that they were finishing Clone Wars, dude, I'm getting chills again just thinking about the first time watching that trailer. Absolutely awesome, man.
We got the wolves running Rebels. Wasn't quite as artistic, and elongated legs, but you had Ezra and all the wolves. You had all that in Rebels instead.
Right. And speaking of a bunch of these other shows, we can segue right in to Mandalorian, because we didn't do an episode last week because of the Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S., but we had a huge episode last week of Mandalorian, and then a really, really good one this week. What was 13 was chapter 13 was the Jedi, and 14 was the tragedy.
The tragedy.
Yeah. So I literally just finished this episode just minutes before we all got on this call together to record. Jay, Steven, I think you guys watched it earlier this morning.
Yeah.
What were your guys' thoughts on this episode?
Times.
Several times already?
Yeah, several times.
All right, well, let's start with chapter 13 first. We'll do a recap on 13, and then we'll get into 14. So, what did you guys think of the first live-action appearance of Ahsoka Tano?
Take it away, Steve.
And I think some of the things I'm going to say about Ahsoka, I'm going to save for our discussion as we move into the rest of the episode. But, I wasn't sure how much we were going to see of her. Seeing a character that I love in live action, and like the payoff of 12 years since 2008 of a character that's gone through so many different, stages and developments, and then seeing her live action within the first 30 seconds of the episode with those two white lightsabers going back and forth, and just seeing her have these, conversations about the Force that are, I would almost put on the same level of old Ben Kenobi talking to Luke in A New Hope, like just opening up the mythology, providing answers, seeing her so poised, seeing her kick ass, it was just amazing to see the Ahsoka in a live action, and I cannot wait to see where she goes next. Jay, what did you think about her?
Oh, I thought it was great. So, you got the episode opens up in the city of Caladan on the planet Corvus. I've mentioned to you before this recording began, but I'll say it again for the listeners. Regards to the magistrate, Morgan Elsbeth, now, just a runaway fan theory, nothing more than that. It's just a simple theory in a pool of others. But Ahsoka states to Din Djarin that Morgan Elsbeth's family was, his civilization and family was destroyed during the Clone Wars. Now, we can all see that Diana Lee Inosanto is of a Far Eastern Asian heritage. We see the art direction of the magistrate's castle. Like Jabba the Hutt's palace, it's shaped on those traditional Japanese and Chinese styles. Now, Clone Wars, Season 4, Episode 14, A Friend in Need, set 20 years before the Battle of Yavin. There's an outer rim planet called Karlak, and it's inhabited by a civilization called the Ming Po. The Ming Po, and again, like Morgan Elsbeth, they're all of a Far Eastern heritage, and they were raided and destroyed by Death Watch. Now, this is before previously got his head chopped off by Maul, so Bo-Katan was a part of this. I'm intrigued to see if Bo-Katan was part of this person's downfall, which later led her to become the person she is, building ships for the Empire and ravaging worlds. So I'd like to see how that plans out, if we'll see any more. I'm sure we'll see more of Morgan. What her performance, Diana's performance in that episode, I thought was incredible. The duel between them both. I mean, on one side of the gate, you've got Sergio Leone's fistful of dollars, aim for the heart, Ramon. And then on the other side of the gate, you've got, I know some people say Kill Bill Volume 1, that's fine. I like to keep mine old school. We've got 1974 Toshiya Fujita movie, Lady Snowblood, which is the scene in that movie where there's two people fighting in the snow, which is the scene where Kill Bill got the inspiration from. And you see these two different art styles on one separated by this gate. I thought that was phenomenal. I've read online some valid points about Ahsoka's dismissal of the attachments, where she leaves the Jedi Order to begin with because of the Jedi's feelings on attachment. I've read there's a few people who believe that is what she said about not training Jedi who's attached was very un-Ahsoka, and they always bring up the Clone Wars arc where she leaves, but I think a lot of people need to take into consideration as well Siege of Lothal, Rebels Season 2, Episode 1, where she finds out who Darth Vader is, and then the duel facing Vader and Anakin has left obviously a massive impression on her, which is why I think that character arc might have changed slightly. Then spending, I don't know how many years in isolation on her own, waiting for someone to pick her up. But when Ahsoka talks about seeing that attachment, what it does to a Jedi, the best of us, obviously referencing Anakin, it's not a secret, everybody knows it, but that was the biggest punch in the stomach I think I've ever received. Probably more so than that Stormtrooper took in today's episode of Mandalorian. That was one solid gut punch. That really, felt every single piece of that. And again, if I had, Stephen, go back to your point earlier, if I hadn't watched the Clone Wars, never would have understood it. Or I would have understood, I would have said, okay, yeah, she was trained by Anakin. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but I didn't feel it. And that I thought was great. Again, a lot of people are criticizing, or I'll rephrase that. A lot of people have noticed the Lekus and the Montran is very short. Brian, one of the art directors who crafted and designed the Lekus, has stated on his Twitter feed that it is still an ongoing work, and it was a process that they work hard on to get them right for the stunts, specifically for the fight scene at the beginning, and the little somersault she does when she fights the magistrate. Now, I don't know moving forward. I think there are plans moving forward to continuously strive for something a little bit better. We might find out of the blue, just like with the previous week's episode of The Mandalorian, Gene Guy has now vanished. I checked it myself. Gene Guy's gone. So it could very well be that somewhere out of the blue, you might find that episode's been digitally altered.
They're going to special edition it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did it. They didn't announce it, but they did it with the previous episode, The Siege. If you go back and watch that episode, the guy, Gene Guy, as he's come to affectionately be named, he's nowhere to be seen anymore. He's gone. They digitally removed him and just kept quiet about it. So it could very well be something that you could see at a later date with the Jedi. But I thought this was amazing, and I loved the name drop. I'm not referring to Thrawn. But I'm referring to Tython. In the old expanded universe, Tython was the home planet of the Jedi, the original planet of the Jedi, not Act 2, which isn't canon, but in EU Legends, Tython it's got two moons, Ashla and Bogan, as we all know is the original George Lucas script for The Light and the Dark, and Bendu says the same in Rebels, season 3 of Rebels, when Kanan Jarrus meets Bendu for the first time. The Ashla and Bogan, the light and the dark. I am the one in the middle of the Bendu. Now, Tython's first appearance, which I'm surprised, Brian, you've not mentioned this. Tython's first appearance was in the Darth Bane book, Rule of Two.
Yeah, it was.
That was the first appearance of Tython in the old expanded universe.
Good book, by the way. Even if it's not canon, good book.
Well, in modern canon, it appeared in a Darth Vader comic with him and Dr. Aphra a couple years ago.
Yeah. But it's nice to actually get it name dropped, on whether it's live action or animated. But it's nice to hear it name dropped by a Jedi. And I thought the episode was great, and we get those HK-87 droids. It took on my third viewing, I noticed when the droid comes up quite close to the camera, you see the side profile, you can see the 7th Fleet. You can see the logo of the 7th Fleet, weathered slightly, but on the side of the droid's head. You're not going to catch it the first time you watch it, of course, because you have minds all over the place. But it was nice to see that simple little things, logos. We were talking earlier about the logos with the from the Siege. The doctors who are destroying the data have the logos which the doctor has on his arm. But the guy upstairs in the capital ship, Moff Gideon's capital ship, he's got the Imperial Research and Development logo, which got a different logo, which to me would solidify that those are two different projects that they're working on. But it's nice to see that they're still utilizing logos that fans would know, but they're gone in the blink of an eye, that you just don't see it. And they did the same for Rebels as well. Darth Maul's little cave on Rebels, he had written in Sith writing on the cave, Kenobi was written on the wall in Sith script.
It's a testament to the world building that Lucasfilm has done, because you even with the comics and the novels, you get all these planets that are introduced, and then when you do something live action, you've got this plethora of planets that you can choose from to use, or it just makes sense if you've listed 100 planets of the most commonly visited planets in the comics and the novels. It only makes sense to use them again in live action with the television shows and the films as well.
Well, that's right. I mean, Brian, how many times have we had this conversation about, okay, the original film starts off, we see Aldron get destroyed, and everyone's got to start somewhere. So when we see that for the first time, nobody had any connection to that.
Right.
But go to Force Awakens, we now got Hosnian Prime. Now, in canon, the government moves to wherever the elected chancellor is from. Now, put this into, this is a galaxy-wide operation. Think locally, right? The election is just finished. Are you going to pick up the White House, pull it up, and drop it wherever Joe Biden's from? and then say, okay, all the staff, all the security, all the transport moves, you've got to change all the roads, you've got to cordon off some roads, separate some. It's a logistical nightmare. And, you know, and all because they wanted to blow up Hosnian Prime. Starts off in Chandrila, moves around a few times then, and it settles in Hosnian Prime 4 is destroyed. And again, we've no connection to Hosnian Prime. They had a deleted scene, which is still on the cutting room floor, which gives some indication as to what Hosnian Prime was like, but it was deleted. They could have just had, instead, an orbital bombardment of Coruscant. They haven't got to blow the planet to pieces. They can keep the planet. Just do a Knights of the Old Republic. Just do what Malak did to Taris, and just orbital bombard the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine the impact, like you said, Richard, if we watched Coruscant from 1, 2, and 3 and seeing a planet that we've been to in 3 films. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. The prequel fans know Coruscant because that was in the movies. The original trilogy fans, obviously, they wouldn't. But a lot of them would have played some of the old video games on PC. A lot of them would have read the Timothy Zahn's original Thrawn trilogy, which Coruscant was first envisioned. People like myself who kind of fell into Star Wars in 1997 with the special editions, you know, it was at the end. It was at the end in the special edition trilogy. Mm-hmm. So we've all bonded with Coruscant throughout certain stages of our lives, you know, whether it's video games, comics, the movies, whether it's books. So, you know, an orbital bombardment of Coruscant would have been so much cooler than just a Death Star Mark III blowing the whole thing up. And you still got the planet. It's not gone anywhere. It's just been ripped to shreds. Still there. You can still rebuild it. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree because, like you said, just doing something like what they did to Taris, because that was still so devastating in that game, you know, and it's just, yeah, I don't know why, you know, so, I mean, it's not even that, I shouldn't even say that every so often. It's pretty often in the films, a planet just gets obliterated. You know, we lost Alderaan, and then we lost
Jeddah?
Ilum, yeah. Then we lost Hosnian Prime and Kijimi. That was the other one, Kijimi. Do what?
The city of Jeddah isn't looking good too good these days either.
Yeah,
Jeddah, Rogue One.
yeah, and think of how devastating that was too. You know, they cracked the planet obviously, but they didn't destroy it the way they did Alderaan, and they could have still done something like that with Hosnian Prime and still got their message across. You know what I mean? But they wanted to be bigger and better, badder than the Empire ever was, and a light speed weapon that took out 5 planets at once. They took out the whole system. Mm-hmm. With one shot, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand why they didn't use Coruscant. I just orbitally bombard the planet, because we already know from the original movie when Luke asks Han, "Hey, what's that red flashing light? What's that? What we got to do? We got to plot nav coordinates. You can't just jump. You'll jump into a moon." Do the same with Rey. You know, 2-minute scene, less than that, 2-minute scene, and then have another one to say, "Well, we've got to our location. We now need to make another jump." And then just have Starkiller Base as being this structure that just launches ships through any charted space without the need for another jump. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with Ahsoka. I don't know how the hell I managed to get from Ahsoka to this.
It's easy to get off track when we're talking about Star Wars. It's so easy.
I'm terrible for it. I'm terrible. My main concern with Ahsoka going in was the voice. Ashley's voice is recognizable through a you just can't mistake Ashley's voice, and I think Rosario Dawson, credit to the girl, I think she pulled off a pretty damn good not impression. I think she pulled off a pretty damn good version of the voice. You know, I believed I was seeing Ahsoka when she's communicating with Grogu without the use of any body, without the use of any voice. She's communicating with the Force and just body language, and she name drops him as if it was like matter of fact. Well, don't you know this is Grogu? And you know, we all then get to share the same sort of feeling that Din Djarin gets, like what Grogu, and then little Grogu, his little coo, and he looks up like his little noise he makes. But and her entrance right off the bat, I thought that we might have seen Ahsoka at the end of the previous episode, so we could start to hit the ground running. But I know I was talking to somebody who said, nah, if Ahsoka's going to pop up, it's going to have to be in Filoni's episode. Because I was expecting to have her pop up at the very end of the previous episode. They said, nah, that's going to go to Filoni. Even a cameo has to go to Filoni. Fair enough. Straight off the bat, she came running out, Predator style. You see the way she Count Dooku killed that one guard? I think he was the last but one guard before she ran up and killed the last one. She just popped up out of the shadows behind him, 2 lightsabers turned on, and she just lobbed his head right off. Oh, my days. She ain't playing. Oh, and she gives that smile at the end where they take that the charge to the city, to Canada, and she runs up the wall and she starts beating down those guards at the top, and she uses the force. She pulls the weapon out of the one guard's hand, throws it behind her, knocks out the guard behind her, and she just looks. She looks at the guy that's standing there unarmed. She does that kind of nod, turn of her head.
Yeah.
And it was like, that is Ahsoka.
That was my favorite Ahsoka
that
moment.
mannerism was bang on the mark, and I think it's great. As to where canon timeline, I've been looking around, and even Dave is purposely being vague on it. But as Dave Filoni does, he's purposely being vague on it. So I think it's from what I can gather, I think it's this particular time is supposed to be set just before she goes to Lothal, which is why we didn't see Sabine. She gets the location. She gets the location of Thrawn, I'm assuming from the magistrate, but if not, doesn't matter. She goes somewhere else and gets it, and then she comes back for Sabine, and off they go. So, really looking forward to seeing where that goes. Whether or not there's going to be another live action show for Ahsoka, whether or not they're going to do the reported Rebels sequel as animated, whether or not it's going to follow the same path. Is it going to go down that road to get Ahsoka, or is the Rebels sequel going to be completely separate? I don't know.
But you don't bring in Rosario Dawson for a 40-minute episode. You definitely sign her on for a contract, and who knows what that will look like. Whether it's a spin-off, whether it's a sequel series, who knows? But I'm excited.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so they've tested the water with Rosario to see how the fans feel. And they brought her in. She is an established actor. She can act. She knows what she's doing. And I think there's already plans in place. Whether or not those come to fruition, I don't know. But there's definitely plans.
And I think it got a positive, outcry from the fans, last week of how excited they were to see her, and for new fans to see, like, the first time in a television show, lightsabers being wielded live action. I think, people are excited to see her. They want to know more about her. And like I mentioned, the viewership of Clone Wars has skyrocketed in the past week. And I think it's going to keep going up. And she's a character that continues to grow her fan base every time people get introduced to her.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it's like you go back to the beginning of the Clone Wars, and the character was despised. And it's what we as fans don't always, sometimes you'll see fans will argue online, or they'll spill their vitriol, and then they'll claim victory then when something changes the next season down the line, where like Dave Filoni had George, they did the movie, but then they also already had written the first 2 seasons of the Clone Wars. So you're supposed to see her in this childish fashion. Probably wasn't supposed to hate the girl to begin with, Sky Guy, but
Snips, Sky Guy,
she was written in this childish fashion because she was 14 years of age. She was a child. She had this power. She knew she had this power. She probably thought she was a badass. Look at me, I've just graduated from Youngling School. And who she paid with.
And she had an awesome teacher, a mentor, that like the two of them were like, fire and ice at first. And she learned so much from him. And like even her fighting style today in Mandalorian, was inspired by her master.
Yeah.
And look at how much she had to mature. Like, she is growing up as a teenager during this galactic war. So you look at her over this 3-year war period, where she is at the beginning of the war as a little kid, to she's an adult by the time the war's over, and she's fighting for her life, and she has to figure out what's the next step forward, thinking she's lost everyone that's ever meant anything to her.
Yeah. You see the way the character matures throughout the Clone Wars, and then obviously we do get a big jump, but then into Rebels, and you see how she's matured. The reaction in the Siege of Lothal, when it all comes to a head for her, where I'm not sure if Ahsoka had any inklings beforehand, if she had suspicions, but regardless if she had suspicions or not, when she reached out in the Force and felt her old master flying in that TIE fighter, I'd like to see something that explains, because she closes down her emotions. She doesn't explain, oh look, this is my old master. Remember what on the show it was where Kanan says, the fear, the hate, I've not felt a presence like that since, and she cuts him off. She says the Clone Wars. She just cuts him dead. So I'd like to see, we had this in the expanded universe with Leia in the novel Tatooine Ghost, which is set a couple of years after Return of the Jedi, but before the Thrawn trilogy, where she's already a mother. It's where she comes to peace with who she is. She comes to peace with her bloodline. And it's just a book on Leia, exploring Anakin, finding Shmi Skywalker's old diaries, seeing holocubes, photographs of a young Anakin on a pod racer, and hearing tales from the locals about this young kid. He used his money, and he helped some people, some travelers, obviously Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and he used the leftovers money. He freed some of the slaves that were there, and then she's trying to process all this with what she knows of her biological father, the man in the mask, Darth Vader. And I'd like to see something with Ahsoka, because we don't get to delve into Ahsoka's mind to see how she comes to that resolution, how she resolves that internally. When she comes face to face with Vader in Twilight of the Apprentice season 2 of Rebels finale, and she cracks Vader right on the back, right in the head, takes a chunk of his mask, and then you get the dual voice of Anakin Skywalker and Vader at the same time, and her eyes just widen as she sees it. I won't leave you, not this time. Then you will die. How she resolves that in her mind. She's had how many years alone? Probably at least 5 or 6. Who came to pick her up?
I would love to see a canon story. Sorry, I would love to see a canon story some point where she does get a chance to meet Luke. I don't care if it's a novel. I don't care if it's a television show, whatever it is, because as far as I know, I don't even know at this point in Mandalorian if she knows that her master was ever redeemed. And I think if Luke gets to tell her that, imagine the emotional connection that she could have with her master and best friend's son. You know what I mean?
I saw a meme on Twitter. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. And I have no shame saying it, I legit felt a little tremble. My bottom lip started drooping a bit. And it was just this little drawing of Ahsoka and Luke from post Return of the Jedi. And she says, "You're Skywalker. Any relation to Anakin?" "Yes." "Also, you faced Vader?" "Yes." "What happened?" "My father saved me." And then the next panel down, Ahsoka is on her knees crying, and in the speech bubble it said, "He came back." And I'm filling up now seeing it, because it was just exactly what you said. That I want to see that. I want to delve into Ahsoka's emotions a bit more to see how she's resolved this, because as you've said, we're going back to 2008, with the Clone Wars came in, and this whole relationship where she is one character that has earned the respect from people. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Leia, Vader, they got their respect from day one because of the impact they had on the screen. Nah, Ahsoka has fought and grabbed respect from people over the years and the years of the writing, and how that character's evolved, and the tireless work put in by the cast and the crew. And I'd love to see that Ahsoka and Luke,
or even
face to face.
What about Ahsoka and Luke, or even with Anakin's Force Ghost, or even if there comes a time at some point, we know she will die eventually, when she passes on and moves into the living Force,
well, she's dead.
Yeah,
she's dead before episode 9 because Rey hears her voice
there. Yeah, but if there's a way that we could see her connect, even Rosario Dawson with Hayden Christensen Force Ghost, imagine the closure that she could get, because I bet she had so much weight on her mind and heart the whole time, thinking, did I do something wrong that led him on this path? Was it because I walked away from the Jedi Order? Was it something else that I did? So to know that he was able to get peace and he came back to the light side would take off so much weight of her heart. You know what I mean?
Now, see, this is the part where I get a little bit conflicted. Now, don't get me wrong. If it's in live action, great. I'm going to watch it like everybody else, and I'm going to sit there with my thumb in my mouth, and I'm going to enjoy it like everybody else, because it's Hayden Christensen and Ahsoka, right? We've got Anakin and Ahsoka. But at the same time, I think that should be done by Ashley. That's her reward for sticking it out. But then if it's Ashley, it's Matt Lanter.
Yeah.
It's not Hayden. So it's like, can we see it in both live action and animation, please?
I think there's a chance, we could see Ashley continue the role on in some form of live action, whether it be in the Bad Batch episodes, whether it be, who knows, another series, if they do a future one in the animated after Mandalorian, whatever. But I think Rosario Dawson will continue live action. I think we're going to see different versions of Ahsoka, like we've seen different versions animated in live action of other characters. And I think that offers us a lot of opportunity to still enjoy different versions of the same character throughout different points in her timeline.
Yeah, I mean, you don't bring in Rosario Dawson just to dub her out, but then the fact that they didn't dub her out was perfectly fine for me, because I thought she did an amazing job. But just like they did with Maul in Episode 1 and the original Emperor in Episode 5, they were dubbed. Ray Park gave his lines, and he was dubbed over by some guy called Richard something, I believe his name was. And the same with Clive, who played the original Emperor. His lines was dubbed over. I think.
Well, even in Solo, wasn't Ray Park's lines dubbed over by Sam Witwer in Solo?
That's it, yeah. Because obviously by this point now, we don't see this other gentleman, Richard something, as being Maul. We see Witwer. We see Witwer. Witwer's the only Maul that we need to hear, and they did it then. And again, it's not to discredit Ray Park's acting abilities, although Rosario Dawson is in a different league when it comes to acting in comparison to Ray Park. But I think had they gone down the road of dubbing Rosario Dawson, not to cause offense to Rosario, I don't mean that at all, but had they dubbed her with Ashley Eckstein's voice, it would have blown my fucking mind.
That would have been amazing, yeah.
I'm going to be the naysayer, actually, out of the Ahsoka thing. I'm not going to be one of those guys that just bashes it completely, like, we've been seeing online by some, but I'm as cool as it was to see Ahsoka in live action, I'm kind of indifferent with the Rosario Dawson thing. I'm more of the mindset, fans have been calling for her to play Ahsoka since, God, when, 2010? Something like that, 2011.
It's been a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it has, and it's obvious that that's the only reason they cast her as Ahsoka, because of the fans calling for it. But for me personally, and don't get me wrong, she did a good job bringing Ahsoka to the live action. I totally stand by that. But as far as Rosario Dawson goes, for me personally, I think when I looked at Ahsoka in that, with an exception of that one moment you brought up earlier, Jay, when she pulls the rifle out of the guy's hand, just turns around and looks at him and smiles. With an exception of that moment, I saw Rosario Dawson more than I did Ahsoka. And I mentioned it to Kirsty as well, and she was like, yeah, I think you're right. I think that was the problem, because had they went with somebody we'd never seen before on screen, a no-name or somebody like that, I think psychologically, for me at least, it would have branded her more as Ahsoka in my opinion, but all I could see was Rosario Dawson. But that's just me. I know I don't care about the Leku size. I don't care about, you know what I'm saying? It's just, for some reason, she did a good job portraying her, but I don't feel like she sold it 100% for me personally.
And, I'm glad she had Filoni directing her, because he knows Ahsoka better than anyone.
Oh, yeah.
And so
yeah.
Filoni helping her along the way, I would hope that if we see Ahsoka again with its Rosario Dawson or whoever, I think, Filoni should always be involved with. He's directing, producing, writing.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because that's his baby. Like, I read an interview even yesterday that said Lucas really wanted her dead before Revenge of the Sith. And Filoni kept fighting and fighting. And I'm glad, obviously, that she didn't, die within the 7 seasons of Clone Wars, but that she's still living on now.
Yeah. Talking to Lucas as well, props to Rosario Dawson, but there's been reports that George was on set watching her perform. The pressure you must be under, knowing that this character is, I mean, I'm not sure if she would fall under the bracket of a legacy character, because it's a pre-Disney character, but it certainly has inspired a lot. I mean, you look at the fan conventions, you look at the sheer amount of young women, and young girls who cosplay as Ahsoka. It means a lot to them, and the pressure that must have been on her to nail it, because, look, we've seen how fanboys and fangirls are in any sort of franchise that affects the way you live, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC. If you rub them the wrong way, they will constantly bash you, belittle you, and physically get you to take yourself away from the crowd. So there must have been a hell of a lot of pressure on Rosario Dawson to nail this, because there's no reference to go to. Like, there's no live reference. You look at an animation and say, okay, how can I get a mannerism from her when it's animation? Can I see the way her shoulders twitch? When we watch the Siege of Mandalore, the motion capture fight, and you can physically see Ray Park. The minute he pulls his lightsaber out and he's got his hand balled into a fist, pulled into his rib cage. You can see that's Ray Park. You can see all these little mannerisms where he's jumping and his back leg and his leg is flicking back as he's jumping to elevate him to get some extra height. But with Ahsoka, there's no real frame of reference for her to work off to really nail those mannerisms down. Aside from just talking to Dave and just looking over, some animation cells just to see how she can pull it out. And I think she did a fantastic job, because it's not as if she's had to create a character on the top of her head, a brand new character. No, she's got to accurately recreate a character that's a cartoon and sell it.
Yeah, Jay, you mentioned she was there with George Lucas on set. I mean, we have to think with Lucas, Ahsoka. I know he and Filoni created her. I mean, she's probably one of the last characters for Star Wars, the last main character that he created, really, because I mean, throughout the series of Clone Wars, a few other ones included, but this is one of Lucas's last legacies that he actually had a part in creating and making such an important, we really watched the Clone Wars through Ahsoka and Rex's eyes, even from the beginning to the very end at Siege of Mandalore,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. And the one thing I love about the Mandalorian as well is that they always say, at the end of each episode, created by George Lucas or inspired by George. They always nod George straight away. After the director's name pops up, bang. The George, I think, is the second name that pops up. Say, inspired by or created by George Lucas. I think that's great. It's a nice little thing for John and Dave to do, is to acknowledge that, this wouldn't be possible without George.
And we wouldn't be talking right now if it wasn't for George.
That's right, yeah.
Well, we've got another character. Yeah, I was going to say, we've got another character that is making their epic, triumphant return to the Star Wars universe. He's been teased a couple times so far in Mandalorian, but he made his debut return in this week's episode of Mandalorian. Let's talk about, what was it, Chapter 14, The Tragedy.
The Tragedy.
This is the one that just released today. What'd you guys think of this episode, man?
Good, Jay.
Magnifique. Absolutely. Again, I can take or leave some criticisms of people saying some of them, they don't really bother me so much. I thought just the same as this episode and the last two episodes, the Jedi and the Siege, I thought were absolutely flawless. Flawless in every possible way. I know not everyone's going to agree with that, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with me, but come on, man. Old man Fett, kicking ass.
Yeah,
chewing gum, spitting savage face, and the Seeing Stone. Seeing the Ralph McQuarrie false writing around the Seeing Stone. Stuff that you see in the old books from the old Massassi temples in Yavin, where he draws them all out. And you got these little scriptures, just diagonal lines, straight lines and diagonal lines, just written in a line across, and you see them very faintly on the Seeing Stone. And when it cuts to Grogu and he's on the stone, he's not sure what to do, and he's trying to catch a butterfly, and then you hear Slave One, or and then bin turns and in it comes. You see the way it lands so smooth, it just flips, bang, drops down, cuts back to Grogu. It's just a shower of light on him. Physically see the Force, physical apparition of the Force there. I just thought it was great.
It had a real Valley of the Jedi feel to it.
It did. I was expecting Desant to come up and start kicking off. I'm fired.
I just didn't know how they could top last week's, in my opinion. Every week it keeps topping itself. It keeps getting me more excited, and I'm so excited to watch what happens next. I mean, my mouth hit the floor whenever I saw Slave One. Yes. And then, of course, you see Boba Fett looking at the, Razor Crest, and you know what's about to happen. And then 3 minutes later, he finally has the uniform on. He's ready to go.
You're still not prepared for it.
About this before we started recording.
Yeah.
In one episode of Mandalorian, we're seeing the Boba Fett that we've been hoping to see since Empire Strikes Back, because you see him probably for a total of 4 or 5 minutes between the original trilogy, and then a couple minutes at the back of the Clone Wars. But to see this Boba Fett again wrecking shop, just full on action, the way that we wanted to see him, I think that's the Boba Fett that I've been waiting for.
Yes,
absolutely.
There's a lot of things from the concept designs that were never exploited or seen in the originals, Din Djarin's got the whistling birds on his wrist. Well, you go back and look at some of the concept designs of Boba Fett. He's got the same thing in his knee pads, and we finally get to see him. The missiles that he shoots on his knees.
That was one of the things I brought up to Kirsty while we were watching it, because you always hear about the rocket firing knee pads, but you never see them get utilized. And now it's like Dave Filoni has got. It's like he's in this mentality of he's got all these action figures at home and he's just playing them out, and he has all these toys, these action figures he can pull out and tell whatever story he wants, and it's great, And when Slave One came flying in, man, I lost it. I completely just lost it, because I wasn't expecting Slave One to pop in. I mean, you see the recap, right, where you kind of cut back to season 1 where he's walking up on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so Fett's going to pop up somewhere in this episode. Yeah. And then
the famous filler,
but like Ahsoka, how she popped up right at the beginning of the episode, I wasn't expecting to see Slave One come out of nowhere and just, oh my God. Like Steven said, you knew Fett was going for the armor on the Razor Crest, but nothing could prepare you for actually seeing it.
For the reveal. And that siren, that horn, that siren that was played over the top when that trooper turned around and saw Fett in armor looking at him, and Fett pulls his arm back and just holds it there for this, this WWF backslap from hell, just backhands him straight in the face.
The Stormtrooper massacre of 2020.
Yeah, I'm Robert Rodriguez, the director. What a fantastic job. I don't know, how this process evolves. Do they just sit there, John, Dave, and Rob, and just say, just break out the toys? Let's just, what are we going to do this one? We're going to have Ahsoka this one? Nah, we'll chuck Ahsoka. I'll just chuck it. We'll chuck Fett in. Oh, we'll chuck the one with the missile jetpack. Yeah, we'll finally give that a pop. It is literally just a bunch of boys just playing, with their imagination, and it's everything it needs to be. Yeah, I know there's a lot of issues where people say, oh, it's a children's show. It's not a children's show. It is a children's show. And when you watch it, it's supposed to bring out the inner child in you, how you felt when you saw Boba Fett for the first time back on the holiday special back in the late 70s. And then you see him in Empire Strikes Back when he's funneling Luke, because that's all he does in episode 5. He's there like the stormtroopers in the Star Destroyer in the original movie. They just funnel in someone. They funnel the Han, Leia, and Luke back to the Millennium Falcon. Leia says, "Oh, they let us get away. That was so easy." And Tarkin says, "It was the tractor beacon on the ship because they let them get away." And with Boba in Empire Strikes Back, he's funneling him to Vader. He's keeping them separated from everybody else. He's funneling them off, and then you get to see a little bit of Boba in Return of the Jedi. The special edition version see a lot more of him in Return of the Jedi, where he's pasted into certain shots in the background, where he's tickling the chin of one of the dancers, and you get the fight scene where he gets punked out pretty quick. But at least you do see in Return of the Jedi, he pops a shot off into Luke's hand and breaks Luke's cybernetic skin and damages the hand. But going back though to his reveal in the armor after he just backhands that stormtrooper and he just goes off on one, Marvel Punisher style, just goes off. Just starts breaking legs, breaking limbs, grabs that one guy, twists him around, shoots the other guy with those lasers that blast that comes out.
Yeah,
of
he
his
shot
wrist.
2 guys at once.
Yeah, and then he just puts a point blank range into that stormtrooper's ribcage and sends his soul out of his body, shoots his soul back like 10, 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But going back just a little bit before that, Stephen, as you were mentioning, when he was swinging that gaffy stick, the second guy he hit with the gaffy stick, he smacked him off a rock, and he bounced off the rock twice. Do you remember that one? When he
Back and
bounces
forth,
off the rock twice?
And just seeing the stormtrooper helmet just be obliterated right there.
Yeah, that's it. There looked like a truck had gone over it.
It was basically like Chirrut from Rogue One going off on the stormtroopers on Jedha, minus the Force, obviously. But we also learned a lot about Jango in this episode too.
Yeah. Do you like the line he dropped, the Django line he dropped?
Yes,
and
just a simple way.
Make my way.
Simple man trying to make my way in the universe. Yeah.
And it tied in so much because, again, with Filoni, helping Favreau kind of see like the big picture of how it all connects. There's been that controversy for years about is Jango, is Boba, are they actual Mandalorians? And the fact that they were able to resolve that issue in that Clone Wars episode by that family tree and say he was a foundling, which we know
he's a foundling.
These guys are like brothers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Django is now canon a Mandalorian. Boba, obviously, as Boba said, he's not sworn allegiance to anybody. He's not taking no creed, but the armor belongs to him because the armor was his father's, who was a canon Mandalorian. So
we'll see that brings up now. There's an episode in Clone Wars, an arc where Boba is trying to assassinate Mace Windu because of the death of Jango Fett, and we see that Mandalorian helmet with the thermal detonator inside of it. And everybody was talking, well, Boba Fett's helmet in the classic trilogy isn't the same one that Jango had in the prequels because he blew up that Venator class cruiser with that helmet. And now we know, he said that was my father's armor, so it's the same armor from Jango Fett. You know what I mean? Because there was kind of that discrepancy there for a while with Mace Windu looking at that helmet. You guys remember which episode I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And
so that must have been like a fake helmet or something.
Yeah, it must have been, or just another Mandalorian helmet to get the point across. But I always thought it was the one.
I mean, it's not a far stretch to say, okay, yeah, that was his father's armor, and it still is. There might be pieces that have been retrofitted over the years. So even if the helmet itself, let's just say that the helmet used in the Clone Wars was in fact Jango's helmet and was a message to say, yeah, look, this is my father's helmet. You know this helmet. Bang. And let's just assume that Boba's helmet is a separate helmet altogether. The rest of the armor is Jango's. Whichever one it is, it makes a difference to me. I mean, the point was across that Cobb Vanth, that's not your armor, give it back or I'll break your legs.
Yeah. Well, and just little subtle thing. We've always known that Boba had the dented helmet, right? He always had that dent on the left side. And I know there's some unfinished Clone Wars concept episodes where him and Cad Bane shot, did the square off.
The old,
but wasn't Jango's helmet dented after Obi-Wan headbutted him in episode 2 on Kamino? If I remember, I thought his helmet was dented on that.
And we follow so much of the canon, and we have to believe that all this is one big piece of a puzzle that's all coming together. So, going back and watching young Boba in Attack of the Clones and throughout the Clone Wars, and then for his cameo in 4 and 5 and 6, and seeing like some of the, comics, like one of the best arcs that I know, Brian, you and I have talked about before, and you mentioned on here, is when Boba, comes to Vader and tells him who the pilot was that shot down the Death Star. And so this is all part of his story, and that we're seeing the Boba in Mandalorian 5 or 6 years after episode 6. And we know everything he's been through and how his character has changed over time. And we know that the whole story, like, it'll change the way that you see him. Because, like, since, 1983, people have thought, oh, Boba Fett's dead. Well, no, he's not. And canon has changed that. If you thought he was dead at one point, he never was officially dead. And now we know there's so much more to his story than just 5 minutes of screen time. You know what I mean?
And to see an honorable side of him, too, because anytime you've ever seen Boba Fett, he was the I don't want to say the scoundrel, but he came off as as the villainous bounty hunter. You know what I mean? And it's hard to keep in mind. Bounty hunters aren't just good or bad. They work for whoever has has the highest bid. And I mean, had the Rebel Alliance hired Boba Fett, he'd have been on their side. You know what I'm saying? Like, so to see like the honorable side of him for once, outside of the films where Vader's telling him no disintegrations and stuff like that, it's really really cool to see how he's willing to tell Din Djarin that, well, we haven't upheld our part of the bargain yet. We're with you until we're square. And it's really, I turned to Kirsty and I'm like, did he just team up with Boba fucking Fett? Like this is really happening, man.
But it's worrying me. I'm worried that they're giving him like a starring role, episode 14, chapter 14, 15, 16. I'm really worried they're going to kill him off in the finale and then have Din use the Slave One going forward.
Yeah, I had the exact same conversation with somebody else, that this is going to be potentially Boba's exit. Din Djarin, then, who we've grown to have a on-screen relationship with, we like the guy. He then takes the Slave One, and he kind of takes that essence of Boba Fett. When people say Slave One, if people are old, people within the Star Wars universe know, if they see Slave One coming, if they're old enough, they have any knowledge, they know that Slave One's carrying Boba Fett. The fact that a Mandalorian comes out with the mask on, they don't know if it's Boba Fett or not, but that imagery would still give that impact.
That T visor, yeah.
But the cockpit, man, we saw the cockpit for the first time since 2002. We're happy with that. Seeing that cockpit again after all these years. Last time we saw that cockpit was the seismic charges in Attack of the Clones. Brilliant. Yeah, phenomenal episode. And I liked as well, he still retained the black cape that he was wearing under the chest piece and the shoulder pads and the knee pads and the helmets. That slow walk he did after he'd beaten the stormtroopers up and they got into the shuttles, the troop transports, and they pulled off. Looked like a precursor to the First Order dropships, didn't it?
Yes, they did.
And I like how I've seen some really disgusting criticism about this particular walk, because you could see a little bit of stomach underneath the chest piece. Right now, let's, for Christ's sake, the actors about almost like 18 years older than when he last appeared. Secondly, you got to put yourself in the mind of the character. Where's Boba been doing all this time? Has he been running around the galaxy? No, he's stuck on Tatooine, probably just munching his way through his rations. But when you see him slowly, like beast walk, boom, 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 and then he finally gets a chance to just drop that targeting reticule. And I liked as well his line about aiming for the other ship. It wasn't just a throwaway line.
Yeah.
Go back and watch it again. He is legitimately aiming
I mentioned that to
the
Kirsty.
exhaust of the left ship.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Kirsty because that rocket hit that top ship, and I'm like, oh, well, he was aiming for the other one. She's like, was he really? And I was like, yeah. And then then they crashed, and he was like, I was aiming for the other one. I was like, oh, jeez.
A moment of silence, please, for the Razor Crest.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Do you know what? Being a fan of quite some, maybe it's my age as well. As I said, I was 12 in 1997, but growing up with it's predominantly video games and what have you, playing Jedi Outcast. Every time I see the Raven, I just did it then. Every time I see the Razor Crest, every time I talk about it, I instinctively say Raven's Claw, Kyle Katarn's ship.
It does look very similar.
Well, it's just the name. It's just the name is similar.
Yeah.
But my God, didn't expect that to go down. Or Gideon popped that ship away. See, go back to what we said earlier about Force Awakens, orbital bombardment. Look with that one ship. That ship's not designed for orbital bombardment, but it still did the job. What was that called? An architect cruiser? Artemis or architect? I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that. It's not a Gozanti cruiser. That was from the Mandalorians when Bo-Katan took the cruiser. That was a Gozanti cruiser. I think this one's an Artemis or an architect cruiser. But one blast blew that Razor Crest right up.
And it's such an iconic ship that if he doesn't get the Slave One at the end of the season, I mean, I feel like he's going to have to rebuild and maybe make Razor Crest 2 or something. It's like iconic, almost in the vein of some of these other ships that we've seen throughout Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, you go back, right, to just before the Mandalorian came out, right? They had the trailers and the behind the scenes and a little bit of footage showing at the last celebration that they held. And you have this little panel with Favreau, and he's talking about shooting this in his well, I call it a garage. You guys call it a garage. And he's filming it in his garage, this model, this mini of the Razor Crest, and they stick LED lights in it. And Filoni, like he's just saying, oh, look, he's laughing, yeah, because it looks so stupid, He's just being Filoni, just having a laugh and just cracking jokes. And they're showing, where they rotate the camera, the Razor Crest, they go back and forth the Razor Crest to do that swooping shot. And then they do the next shot, and they're showing, oh, these are the LED lights to do the engines. And then you see the engine flare as it goes across. And then they mix the two together, and you see the Razor Crest swoop down and fly off. And this is all filmed in someone's garage. And the crowd all you can hear from the crowd is, oh, because it felt, to them, like watching an X-Wing swoop into the trench for back in the day. So from before the show even aired, the Razor Crest, I think, was a smash hit with a lot of especially a lot of the fans who like the practical effects. It was already a legendary class ship before that show even aired. Seeing the production going behind it, to watch that model fly or appear to fly, where they just moved the camera across it and rotated the camera on an axis to simulate the swooping movement of the ship. It already won people over then. And it was a big moment. That was a character's death. We saw that ship beaten and banged up, and now Mon Calamari stitched it together with squids, crabs, and fishnets, and we've seen it beaten, banged up to such a degree, and it was quite sad seeing that thing go. But that further reinforces my belief, Stephen, you said it as well, about Din inheriting Slave One, because I was talking to Carl Catan, YouTuber Carl Catan, the other day, and I said that this episode is going to go two ways, or a couple of ways. Number one, Grogu's going to get in contact with Jedi, who's going to pick him up and go off. Whole show's over. Unlikely, because season 3 is already in production. The other way this is going to go down is that Grogu's going to say, nah, I'm going to stick with Din Djarin. Well, if that's the case, show's over. Quest is over. Third option is shit's going to go down. Grogu is going to get taken. I didn't expect it to be in this episode. I was expecting at the end of season 2. But Grogu is going to get kidnapped by Moff Gideon, and season 3 is going to be a case of, right, okay, I can't do it. I cannot look after this kid. It's too dangerous. I'm putting his life in danger. And I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, great. But I think season 3 could very well be the end of The Mandalorian. I think that season 3 is like, no, you need to go to the Jedi. Like, I can't look after you. You're in danger when you're with me.
Right.
And
we've got the Cassian show coming down the pipipeline now.
Exactly.
And we've got Obi-Wan coming. Yeah.
That's exactly, yeah. So I think that they wind it. I think that, it could very well be the case that Boba Fett, survives season 2. And I think into season 3, I would not be surprised at all if Boba Fett bit the bullet. Din Djarin then inherits Slave One. And, I'm guessing, I'd like to think that at the very end of season 3, Master Luke makes an appearance, not necessarily a speaking role. Master Luke makes an appearance and takes Grogu into his care.
It wouldn't surprise me at this point, yeah.
I still think there's more story to tell. I don't know if it's. I think it's so popular, I do think it's almost like Game of Thrones. It started off very slow, intimate, and like season 2, we're getting more characters that we know. We're getting some new faces and familiar faces. I think, long game, we're going to get into this big picture where it's going to be a fight for a group of Mandalorians to get their planet back, because we don't know what's going on with their, the purge of Mandalore. So I think there's still we're going to keep getting bigger and bigger in scope, where it's always, if you remember season 1, the camera almost never left the Mandalorian. Like, it was always focused on him and how he was interacting with the world around him.
Yeah.
And season 2 now, we're getting more and more scenes outside of his point of view, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, hey, if I'm wrong, we get 4 or 5 more series, then phenomenal. I'll take that. But the only reason why I said could potentially be the end of the show is that, okay, let's just Grogu's already made contact with the Force. Doesn't necessarily mean to say that a Jedi's heard Grogu, but Grogu's made contact with the Force. Now, how many seasons are we going to go before somebody answers back? If Grogu decides, no, I'm not going with the Jedi, I'm staying here with Din Djarin, then what's the mission after that? The whole quest is to drop Grogu off with a Jedi.
Well, we got 2 episodes left in this season. Is that right?
Yeah.
Two episodes.
I'm going to say 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I say season finale of this season, big name Jedi shows up.
Yeah.
What name are you talking? What name are you thinking?
I don't know if I want to drop an Ezra Bridger.
Do you know?
I don't know if I want to drop an Ezra Bridger or I don't. I've seen speculation about Mace Windu too.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
Mace, you just jogged my memory. I forgot there was a whole thing I was going to talk about the Ahsoka episode. But I can't see Mace Windu popping up in The Mandalorian unless it's a flashback. I mean, ultimately, the more Jedi survive, specifically Masters as well, the more of them survive Order 66, the more it degrades from Vader, devalues Vader's
You're
character.
Not wrong.
Because Vader, and Sidious as well, because Sidious was the one that dealt the blow to Mace Windu. I know Anakin chopped his hand off, but Sidious as well, they double team Mace Windu. So if Mace Windu survives all of that, goes into hiding, you've got to be careful when you start bringing back those big name characters, because the more you do that, the more you're going to degrade away from the scene where Anakin goes to the temple and just obliterates everything with a pulse.
But remember, Mace wasn't at the temple that time. For all intents and purposes, Mace is dead unless proven otherwise. But we said that about Boba Fett.
I do think though, when in the previous episode, just a touch back, when Ahsoka tells the story about Grogu being trained at the temple, and he had basically survived the attack on the temple. That's, to me, raised a few questions, because everyone was theorizing, well, how did that happen? Now, again, that feeds into my point about degrading certain characters. Now, all the younglings were together. Are we expected to believe that Grogu was with the younglings and hid a la Solid Snake in a cardboard box and punked Anakin Skywalker? Unlikely, and it damages Anakin a little bit.
Yeah, like he missed one.
That's it, because he was Sidious was specific, wipe them out, all of them.
Yeah.
I think, personally, think about it, who would have known of Grogu's existence, right?
Yoda.
Who would have had access to the temple? Yoda was on Kashyyyk.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right.
Who would have had access to the temple?
Jocasta
Who would have had
knew?
Possibly.
Yeah.
But all we know so far of Jocasta knew, yes, she had potential in the Force, and she was, but her knowledge is why they kept her. It was her knowledge.
Well, remember, she
vast
was
knowledge.
Don't forget, it wasn't her. Who was it? There was a Jedi. Oh, I can't remember his name. It was in the second Vader run. It was the first Jedi Vader hunted down. But
I can picture him. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he was working on putting together kind of a school. And if I remember, was it him that was putting together the school, or was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if he had access to.
Or you know who else? Because our co-host John Gregory mentioned, and it's been online too, but he mentioned in the chat with us, what if this is setting up the Bad Batch, that picks up right after Order 66? And I don't know how they would know about him unless they had another Jedi on the inside or something. But, like they're giving us Grogu's name. They're kind of giving us some hints of the backstory. And we're assuming Bad Batch is going to premiere in 2021. So this could potentially fill in the gaps and make that show even more valuable than we thought originally.
I personally think, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It is what it is. I personally think that the only person who would have knowledge to remove Grogu before the temple was attacked would have been Mace Windu. Also, think about it, right? You've got all the younglings in one room. And Grogu, are we led to believe that Grogu was trained independent of the rest of them? Maybe that was the case. I can't see that, but unless it's written and they say, okay, well, this is the case, Grogu was trained separately, fine, I'll accept that. But you got to, Mace Windu, right, was, as you all know, was a very aggressive Jedi, very stern, very cold for a Jedi. You know, when you look at Qui-Gon Jinn, a compassionate Jedi, Mace Windu was very, very, very cold Jedi. Now, I think that, and look, Samuel L. Jackson has been beating this drum for years about still being alive. I've only lost one hand. Mm-hmm. I fell from a great height, but so did Anakin. Anakin fell from a bigger height in Attack of the Clones when he jumped out of a car.
And Richard, you know he's coming back as Nick Fury on a Disney Plus show, so like he's not against acting in a streaming.
That's
series.
it. Yeah, he's been all, you know, like what was it, the Star Wars celebration, the 40th anniversary, and he would say, "Come on, Kathleen, bring me back, baby." You know, but since then he's been tight-lipped about it. Mm-hmm. I personally think, now I don't know, I saw on Twitter some he who shall not be named, another YouTuber, had popped up this. I blocked this guy's channel because he's just full of garbage. But somebody shared on Twitter a thumbnail, and I was like, "Oh God, don't tell me he's onto this bandwagon as well," because it just invalidates everything that I think. If he's thinking the same, it invalidates everything that I think. And I personally think it would be great if we saw Mace Windu survive the fall, know full well what's going to come next. He gets to the temple. He knows he can't save everybody, but he knows what, out of all these younglings here, who has got the highest survival rate? Who will have the most impact on the galaxy? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to separate the younglings. They go that way as a diversion, and I'm going to get Grogu. I'm going to get him out of there. And he's the only one of the Jedi who's cold enough and callous enough to have that Spock-type logic. Mm-hmm. It's logical to say Grogu, because Grogu's going to live to 900 years of age. These other races here, they can maybe live 150, some of them, but they're not going to be as powerful as Grogu. So therefore, sacrifice the many, you know, to save the one. Mm-hmm. The needs, the Star Trek quote, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And then on the film, when there's the Wrath of Khan, where Spock's death, you know, and he says, or the one. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that if we saw that, Mace Windu, knowing full well he's going to sacrifice all these younglings and make that conscious decision to say, right, you guys, you go off that way. You're fodder. You're Bank the Poodoo. Right? You're fodder. I got to get this one out. He's the only Jedi that I know of who would be callous enough to make that decision. Doesn't mean to say Mace Windu survives. We'll have Mace Windu get cut down by Vader a little bit later.
If that's true, imagine how different that would change the youngling scene from Revenge of the Sith on a rewatch, knowing who should have been there and who wasn't.
Exactly. And then Mace Windu would have been there to save them, but he made the decision, that callous robot decision, because it's like, I'm not against the Bad Batch, but again, how would they have they may have knowledge of him, but how would they get clearance? Would they know the plans and the layout of the temple? Because
it all happened so quickly, from Vader's or Anakin's transformation to Vader. It wasn't like they had days and days to get ready for this. It was Vader turned into Vader, and that same night he's going to the Jedi Temple.
It was a matter of 45 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that we know when you watch the movie is that it's quite light when it's a little bit of light in the sky when Mace goes out the window. When Anakin marches on the temple, it's pitch black, and then the next you see is Padme looking at the temple, and the sun's rising, and there's fire coming off the temple. So Anakin's, I'm guessing, has been there all night chopping down Jedi. I don't know exactly the time difference between the moment Mace left our window and the moment that Anakin arrived at the temple, but I'd like to think that Mace survived the fall, not necessarily the Clone Wars or made it through the trilogy, the original trilogy. As far as I'm concerned, it would have been great to see him get cut down, Vader hunting him. I don't mean Anakin, I mean Vader full, or even Vader fighting him in the temple as Anakin, without the armor. Maybe, that'd be good. That'd be kind of cool.
But with this handling of Boba Fett, I could easily see them saying this is the precedent. Until you see a body laying there, no one's dead in Star Wars. So, this would be the chance to say, if the last scene of season 2 is Mace Windu showing up, cliffhanger till season 3, you're like, what did I just see? And you're like, oh yeah, Boba Fett, who's been dead since 1983, is actually alive, and Mace Windu, dead since 2005, is actually alive.
You got to keep in mind too. You got to keep in mind too the character dynamic, the relationship between Boba and Mace.
Oh yeah,
because Boba wants Mace dead. Yeah.
Oh, Boba and a Mace in this time frame fighting. Could you imagine?
Because remember, because remember, Boba wanted Mace dead. He said it to his face. I'm going to kill you for what you did to my father. You know what I mean? In Clone Wars. So, it's that'd be cool to see.
Boba was the one that said, "I'm going to make sure this kid stays safe," and maybe Grogu connected with Mace. Imagine Mace showing up, and it ends up with a confrontation between Mace and Boba Fett. Season finale.
Yeah, because
could you imagine?
Because think about this. He wants Mace Windu dead. He just swore to protect the child, and if Mace came to get the child.
Oh, he has to go on, break his own code.
He has to break his own code.
Oh my god.
Yeah, or he either has to give up his idea of revenge or break his code.
In 2 weeks we're either going to be really right or really wrong.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because I was playing Jedi Fallen Order last night, and one of the guys that hops on and watches me play a little while, and he's always asking Star Wars trivia. He was asking my predictions for this episode, and I said something along the lines of Mace Windu popping up with Boba Fett. And he was like, "You have a 0.02% chance of that happening." I was like, "I know, it's cool, but it's just something cool to think about."
Never told me the odds.
Yeah, exactly. And then now we're sitting here talking about all this and bringing up Mace Windu and stuff. That would make for an amazing confrontation in Mandalorian.
Don't put anything past Filoni or Favreau. They're willing to make this the best television show possible.
Because think about Filoni too, how he strings things together over such a large period of time. How the Duel of the Fates lightsaber battle connects all the way to Luke fighting Vader in Return of the Jedi. You could have that same thing with Boba and Mace. Go all the way through.
From the prequels?
All the way through,
Past the original. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Nah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if it's there, look, I'm confident enough in Filoni that he could sell the idea and it could be great, but nah. No.
I'm just thinking you could kill off Boba and Mace in one final confrontation, and then you're back to square one with Grogu's still with Din.
And how cool would it be? How cool would it be? Because I mean, think about what you could do with Windu. Because he lost his hand. What if his lightsaber's like built into his hand, and it's like his hand like flips down and his like blade comes out of it, and he starts. Oh my god, dude!
Was that Ash from Evil Dead? Is it the chainsaw?
Yeah, with the chainsaw. You could do it, man, because they pull inspiration from other stuff like that, from other pulp culture, Pulp Fiction. They pull ideas from other genres. They could do something along those lines. I just, God, it probably won't happen, but God,
I think
it'd be
you
cool.
need to put up a poll and see if the fans listening to us right now think we're crazy or if they.
Yeah, we need to.
I'm telling you, you guys are nuts. Look, if I'm wrong, the people who can sell it to me is Filoni and Favreau.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Cool. I get to see a nice lightsaber fight with an old character, but I can't see Mace Windu.
You remember earlier when we were talking about they've got action figures on the shelf and they keep playing with. They're sitting there playing with these Mandalorian action figures, and I guarantee. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I'd like to think Dave Filoni's looking up. He's looking up at that shelf, and Mace Windu's standing there, and he's going, I have an idea. I have an idea.
To be fair, though, I mean, one of the things that Filoni is known for, and I said it a little bit earlier as well. It's unless it's written down, then it's possible. It's possible. When he has interviews and people start trying to get information from him, he goes, really, that's interesting. It's possible. He never gives a straight answer, which is great and frustrating for us as the audience, because when he says stuff like that, he's got some tricks up his sleeve. And if it is going to happen, them two are the only ones that can sell it to me. But nah, I'd like to think that it was Mace was the one who made that callous, cold choice to get them Grogu separated and effectively leave the younglings to die. He gets Grogu out, and hey, if Anakin and Mace have a final showdown in the temple, that would be great. Or does Mace run away for a few years, and does body armor suited booted Vader, does he come after him and stomps him down? That would be great. I can't see him popping up in the Mandalorian in a present time flashback, possibly, but not as a present day.
Well, think about
Mace
this
Windu.
too. If
'Cause, you know,
if Grogu reached out
be-
to a
but,
Jedi, like, think of it this way too. If Grogu reached out to a Jedi, because you were talking earlier about how if the Jedi come into this and they take Grogu, end of series. If he stays with Din Djarin, end of series. It's
Yeah.
one of those things where if Mace Windu comes and then Boba and Mace kill each other, well,
Die in battle.
now Mando still has Grogu and they're back to square one.
Yeah.
You know, and you can still continue the series. I don't know. It was just thought, guys. I like Steven's idea. We're gonna put up a poll.
Yeah.
See what you guys think about maybe maybe a Mace Windu and a Boba Fett face off coming up. I know Jay thinks it's bollocks. I know
You're
he does.
nuts.
I'm
Yeah.
Team Brian on this one. I like your idea and I like how you've convinced me. But I think with going on 2 hours, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Let's move to our mailbag questions. if
Yeah, that's a good
okay with
idea.
You guys.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea, man. Go ahead.
But definitely, I'll be curious about the poll. And again, we'll be back next week to see if we're getting one step closer to maybe what we'll find out here. All right. We've got 4 mailbag questions for today. Our first question comes from Kyler Knowles. After seeing Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, do you think Dave Filoni and Disney possibly just teased and set up several new Disney Plus shows in the future? Also, I downloaded the app and it is looking great. Thank you for the hard work.
Okay, so chapter 13 is the Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's possible. I mean, whether or not it leads into the rumored Rebels sequel, where let's just assume that Ahsoka comes back to the Rebels, which we see at the end of the finale of Rebels. It's very possible, but I think that would have been a seed that was already sown with this finale of Rebels, where her and Sabine go off looking for Ezra. Now, certainly, I'd like to see more of Diana Lee Inosanto as the magistrate, Morgan Elspeth. Love to see more of her. I don't know, because it was a very personal episode. So certainly there's room for storytelling, but I'm trying to think of actual shows that could spin off this. I'm not sure about any shows. Storytelling, yes, because we got the whole what happened to Grogu. They could very well do a show with Grogu. I don't know how that would work, because it's like what Ahsoka said, he doesn't remember much of his last 50 years. It's been a bit of a dark time for him. So I'm not sure necessarily about any shows aside from the already rumored Rebels sequel, which is, supposedly, it's supposed to be about Ahsoka and Sabine trying to find Ezra. Hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I don't know if they've the whole Ezra Thrawn thing. I don't know if they've set up a new show like Jay said. That was already seeded at the end of Rebels, but I think that mention was more of a nod from Dave Filoni saying, "Hey, don't worry. I know I planted that seed, so many years ago, but I haven't forgotten. Trust me, there's something coming." I think that's all that basically was confirmation, or I'm sorry, like a reaffirmation that there's something coming. As far as setting up other series, I don't know. We already know about Bad Batch coming. There was a lot of talk that Boba Fett popping up was going to be a spinoff, but I'm not so sure about that one either, to be honest. What do you think, Steven?
I think based on our discussion a few minutes ago, I think if we're getting some awesome Boba Fett action in season 2 of Mandalorian, and maybe if that's it, I don't see a spinoff. I don't think we need to really see his time on Tatooine. That could be a comic. That could be a novel. I agree. I don't know if we're going to see more of a Boba Fett. I think the Ahsoka Sabine show, whether it's animated or live action, is still coming. And like Brian, you said, that was Dave Filoni saying we haven't forgotten. It's been a couple of years, but it's still in the pipeline. I did read an article today. I don't remember the source. There's rumors of a possible animated High Republic show, so that could be something different, not really a spinoff of Mandalorian. But I'll take anything at this point. I love everything coming my way right now. All right, let's Let's look at number
Question,
2.
Kyler.
Our second question for the week comes from Nate Cody. Hello, Brian. I just recently found the podcast and I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if you'll see this. My name is Nate and I've been a Star Wars fan for as long as I can remember. I prefer Star Wars from before the Disney buyout. I acknowledge the sequel trilogy exists and can respect it for what it is. You're right. There is something for everyone in the new canon. But I don't know if I want to continue to be a fan of Star Wars anymore. For all of my life, I'm 18 by the way, I've been bullied for being a fan of Star Wars. I've always found the Star Wars community to be a safe place for me to be myself. But now I find myself being bullied by some members part of the community I've called home because I prefer the old expanded universe or what's now considered Legends. Sorry this was so long. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to read this.
Wow.
I think it's awful that, again, Nate, thanks for writing in, first of all, and I'm sorry for how you feel. And I think a lot of people might feel this way because I think sometimes Star Wars can get this toxic vibe to it that it shouldn't have. It should be an escape, like Brian and Richard and I always talk about with our other co-hosts. We look forward to coming together, and whether we're chatting throughout the week or coming together to talk, I think Star Wars is an escape from reality. It's a chance for you to care about something that you love and dive into it. And I'm sorry that's happened to you, and I'm sure it's happened to other people. So I'm glad that you did write in to share this. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can empathize a lot with Nate. Remember, back in '97 when the re-release happened, before and just after the prequels, it wasn't cool to be a Star Wars fan because it was still seen as some nerdy fetish. It wasn't until 2015 when The Force Awakens was coming out that it was actually cool to be a Star Wars fan. For decades, just purely because of the whole Marvel universe that had been built up in the 10 years prior and how comic book films had taken over Hollywood. So, I know Brian has touched on this as well in previous podcasts in the past and previous videos that, as a kid, you got a lot of shit for liking Star Wars. It's as simple as that. You get bullied in school for liking it. And so I can empathize a lot with Nate there. It is the social media world where no one is held accountable for their actions. And that doesn't matter what age or what gender. I've seen men and women do it, young men and women. I've seen men and women older than me get petty, spite, vitriol, spitting toxic diarrhea out of their mouth because they're not held accountable to their actions. They wouldn't say it to you face to face. They'd say it to you over the internet. But Nate, I get you on the older you. Nate, I've read every single fucking EU novel. I've got them all in bags up in my loft. The only one I've never read was the last one. I own it, never read it, because by the time I got around to reading that, the Chuck Wendig Aftermath novel came out. Anytime you want to talk Legends, hit me up, Nate. I can talk about the glove of Darth Vader, the mysterious robotic glove with was imbued with the power of the Force, which rendered Darth Vader completely obsolete. There was a magic glove. We could talk about the mission from the mountain called Yoda, crazy ass fucking name for a mountain. We can go all the way back 25,000 years before the original movie, or we can jump straight ahead hundreds of years into the future after Return of the Jedi. I've got every single novel that was ever published. The young readers' novels that shows the children of Han, Leia, Luke going through their Jedi training, to the Vector Prime and the New Jedi Order novels where they become the heroes of the story. The breakdown of the family relationship between Luke struggling to become a father because his own son is more connected with his nephew who's falling further and further and further down the dark side, and Luke can't stop it and he feels powerless to do it. Nate, just hit me up and I can talk to you about it until you're blue in the face.
Yeah, there's something to be said about how it's not that the fan base, at least in my opinion, it's not that the fan base itself is toxic. There's just a toxic part of it, and you know what they say, the minority is usually the loudest, over everybody else, and I think that's what it is at this point. And yeah, man, I can relate. I was, like Jay said, I was bullied a lot when I was a youngling, You know, I was made fun of mercilessly because I like Star Wars, but Star Wars was my escape from all of that. I'd come home and I would just do stupid stuff. We had a split rail fence next to our house. I'd split pieces off of that and stick them in flashlight handles for lightsabers. And like it was just stupid. It was my escape, you know. And it got made fun of all the time. I'd go out in the soccer field next to my house and play with toy lightsabers, and people would ride their bikes by and see me doing it and give me crap. Like it was just what I loved, though, you know. And so with this podcast, with this show, when I brought these guys on, I told them, you know, I want this to be an escape, a true escape, because there's so many. I'm not going to name any names on podcasts or anything, but there's a lot of shows out there that bring everyday baggage that's going on in the world into their shows, and they talk about that as well, and try to use it as a platform to you know, push. I don't want to say an agenda, but their, you know, opinions and stuff that has nothing to do with Star Wars. And that's what we wanted this to be. It was just an actual true escape. Whether you like the new canon or not, you know what I mean? I've read some of the Legends stuff. Like Jay said, he's read all of it, but I've read some of it. I know some of it, but it's one of those things where everybody likes what they like. You know what I mean? If you like Star Wars, love Star Wars, man. You don't have to stop being a fan of something because everybody else that talks to you doesn't, you know, isn't a fan of it. You don't have to change who you are to make somebody else happy. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So, Steven, you're a high school teacher.
Yeah.
Like what have you seen? Like, I know you get up early to watch Mandalorian so you can talk about it with your students.
Yeah.
Is that something that you see even, you know, in your profession?
You know, my classroom is decorated to the hilt with Star Wars decorations. The kids know that I'm a nerdy teacher, and I embrace that aspect of who I am. And going back to like what Brian and Richard said, you know, I was also bullied, you know, as a kid. You know, I remember elementary school, you know, on the, you know, playground, I was teaching, you know, Jedi classes, and people made fun of it. But like they've said as well, you have to rise above that. You do have to kind of look at it. And, you know, there are students in my classes that are, you know, middle school and high school. I teach at a small school, and, you know, some of them are just, ever since Force Awakens, like Richard said, Star Wars has become more acceptable. And so in the past couple of years, you see a lot more from boys, from girls that are wearing Star Wars shirts. They're reading Star Wars books, and they're not getting made fun of as much now. And that's a good thing. I think I'm glad that Star Wars is being accepted. Like, I remember, you know, the past couple of years, I always go to the Thursday night 7 p.m. or midnight premiere, whatever, for the new movies, and I would talk about it. And, you know, there would be other kids that would go and see it the night beforehand too. And, you know, that next day of, you know, respecting, not spoiling anything, but still knowing that they had a teacher that they could talk to about Star Wars. So they had friends, and it was more acceptable now, I think, than, you know, I grew up during the prequels, and I was in elementary and middle school during that time period. And it was a little bit harder to be a Star Wars fan, you know, openly about it, but it was something I loved so much. And everyone in my class knew that I was the Star Wars kid. You know, at lunch, my friends and I would just do Star Wars trivia. So, Nate, you really got to, you know, if you love the Legends material, do it, because like we are lucky that, you know, bookstores are still publishing the books, even if it has a legacy banner on it. You know, those books are still always going to be there. You know, Disney and canon can tell you whatever is the official canon right now. Who's to say that in 10, 15 years, someone else is going to, you know, start the slate over again? So, like, I think what Brian and Richard have said, like, you know, embrace what you love, because no one can take that away from you. So I think anything else, guys, you want to share with Nate before we move on?
Yeah, just the one little thing. Oh yeah, just one little thing. Now, Nate, I'm an old fart, right? I'm 35 years of age. I know you said you're 18, and you're getting this bullying from a lot of this bullying comes from the fan community. Now, switch off. Just switch off to it. You get a little bit older, and I'm not trying to be condescending in any way, shape, or form. When you get a little bit older, you'll be like, it's social media. It means nothing. Switch it off. Come to us. Come to us, because I'll chat to you about Legends all day long. There's a time difference, man. You know, there is a time difference. I'm from the UK, from South Wales. There is a time difference. But as long as I'm awake, I'll chat to you about Legends. Because I remember the days where my parents moved house. I was, I think, 12 or 13. just at the very start of the summer holidays, and I moved out of the small coal mining village that I was born and raised in to the other side of the valley in a little town called Philly. I knew nobody. I had 6 summer break or semester. Didn't know a single person. All I did for that 6 weeks was play Rogue Squadron on my old Nintendo 64. And for those 6 weeks, I was Luke Skywalker or Wedge Antilles flying over Tatooine, all right, or the Jade Moon. And it was some of the best little moments of my childhood. So don't ever feel down about liking Star Wars. Just come to one of us, and one of us will chat to you about it.
Yep. Thanks for writing in, Nate. Let's go on to number 3. Christy Graves. Hey, Canon crew. Got a question for you. We've all heard that George Lucas always said Star Wars was meant to be told from the point of view of C-3PO and R2-D2. With that being said, did J.J. Abrams retcon The Last Jedi completely by wiping 3PO's memory in The Rise of Skywalker? When he gets his memory restored, he tells R2 he's going with Rey on her first mission for the Resistance. Does that mean that The Last Jedi is now wiped from the storyteller's memory? Would love to hear your thoughts.
I like this question.
Is the short answer to that? Yes. I think The Rise of Skywalker retconned 40 years of Star Wars history. I mean, for one...
Man, Jay's going for the jugular.
If Rey is the chosen one, fine. Rey's the chosen one. Cool. So what was the point in the last 40 years? What was the point in Vader? What was the point in any of that? But yeah, you're right. Historically, it's always been a case of these films are told through the eyes of the droids, which is fine. And when you see Mandalorian, look at the titles, the tragedy, the Jedi, they all are told as if it's like a journal of Din Djarin. These are like his titles that people are complaining, oh, Ahsoka wasn't a Jedi. She said, I am no Jedi. Well, Din Djarin doesn't know that. So it has that same feel, that these titles are written through the eyes of Din Djarin. And I like the sequel trilogy. Is some amazing moments in it, some great visuals in some amazing feels. The end of Force Awakens, seeing Luke on the cliff top of Skellig Island off the coast of Ireland. But yeah, it's all over the place. It's a mess.
And you know what? C-3PO and R2-D2 are, in my opinion, considered like main characters for the original trilogy. They're almost side characters in the prequels, and they really have glorified cameos for the most part in the sequel trilogy. They're barely there for the most part, besides a little bit more in Rise of Skywalker. But I don't know if that idea of them being the narrators throughout all 9 films still holds up. What do you guys think in regards to that, Brian? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you on that part. I was going to say something along those lines. Yeah, because R2 had all of 45 seconds in Force Awakens. He had maybe 2 minutes in Last Jedi, and then basically he was just there when Leia died in Rise of Skywalker, and then giving 3PO his memory back. That was basically it. And and I said this several times on the show and on YouTube videos. When I think classic trilogy Star Wars, when I think classic droids, my brain automatically goes to The Empire Strikes Back, the whole Cloud City escape. When they're, for some reason, that's what my brain goes to, and R2 and 3PO were a big part of that. Yeah, granted, 3PO was strapped to the back of Chewie's back, but R2 was instrumental in getting them out. There was even some comedy in that whole tense scene, of him plugging into a power socket and getting a shock, and 3PO giving him crap for it, even though he's the one that told him to do it. There's still that banter there between them. And so you see the same kind of banter with them in episode 2 when they get to Geonosis and everything like that, even though they've just, I shouldn't say just met, but they've just kind of went off on this adventure together finally. And you're right, you barely see him at all in the sequel. I don't even want to call it a sequel trilogy, because as far as I'm concerned, it's not a trilogy. It's just 3 films. In the sequel films, you don't see him hardly at all. 3PO had a little bit of a bigger role in Last Jedi, but not by much. So I don't know if George Lucas considered them the storytellers of the story. Does that mean the last 3 films even happened at all?
Well, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Bail Organa orders the droids to get a memory wipe. I can't remember. I don't know if this is canon or not, but I'm pretty sure in Legends R2 didn't get his memory wiped.
He
I
didn't in
don't know if
canon
that's the
either.
same in canon.
Yeah, R2 was
But
aware the
to-
whole time.
But then R2 does, at the end of Rise of Skywalker, as to, give 3PO his memory back. So you could literally just say, okay, the droids are no longer the narrator. His memory's been wiped. Oh, he's got his memory back again. Therefore, he is the narrator. It's just silly. I thought that was a perfect out for Anthony Daniels because, unlike R2, Anthony Daniels voices his character. 3PO has a very distinctive voice. When it comes to such a time when Anthony Daniels is no longer able to voice that character, because he does this character in every single project that he can get, that comes his way. He loves doing it. You're going to be stuck then for how are you going to move forward with either the character or any other protocol droid of that model. It's easy with R2. R2 makes beeps and sounds and whistles, the same as BB-8 and Dio or Chopper. It just beeps, noises, whistles. 3PO's got a voice.
Mhm.
When he has his memory erased in order to lift the ban on his programming so he can translate all Sith writing, that should have been, and it was quite an emotional scene when you watch it for the first time. You have no idea that it's all for nothing because C3PO comes back anyway. But at that one moment, I thought, oh God, this is it. They're going to wipe 3PO. They're going to factory reset this guy. And he's just going to have probably some default setting voice, which is a computer digitized voice, which can easily be replicated if needs be. And it gives Anthony Daniels the perfect out. So, they're not going to be faced with a situation in the future if they ever carry on with the character where they've got to say, okay, now we have to replicate this man's voice who's no longer able to do it. I think the whole wiping the memory just to restore it again, and it wasn't as if it was a big deal that they restored it. It was R2, just like, oh, come here, mate. You're done. You sorted. What?
Yeah, he just backed him up on his Google Drive. Yeah, he just had 3PO backed up on his Google Drive.
It's like, it's like you just walked up to your kettle in the kitchen and just flicked it on. Yep, kettle on, job done. Like, no effort involved, no drama, just a routine thing you do every morning without thinking.
How many times did they do that in Rise of Skywalker where they're like, oh, this person died? Just kidding. Like, how many times did that?
Chewbacca?
Chewie? Yeah, and if you want to count Palpatine too, because he kind of
C-3PO.
came back with no explanation.
Zori and Babu.
Yeah. Kylo, when
And
Rey
we got a
stabs him with the
handful, I think.
lightsaber, you thought that was the end of
Yeah.
Kylo, and then she heals him. And then Rey dying at the end. Just kidding. She's back. And
Yeah.
Kylo Ben gets yeeted. Palpatine pretty much just throws him down a hole. Just kidding. He's back. It's just 3PO over and over and over again. These people got killed, quote unquote, and then just to come back 4 or 5 scenes later.
Yeah, a character's false finish.
Yeah, it happens
It was overdone.
so many times. Yeah. I tend to think, I feel like that was they were actively trying to retcon Last Jedi with Rise of Skywalker because they mentioned stuff like the Holdo maneuvers and how that was a 1 in a million, pointing a ship at a giant star destroyer and hitting your hyperdrive. That's not a 1 in a million shot. You've got computers calculating that for you. That's not a 1 in a million shot, but they played it off like that was a happy accident. Like, and just. There was so much that, with Luke, with the whole lightsaber, the weapon of a Jedi deserves more respect. Stuff like that, just actively retconning it. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was their way of trying to retcon Last Jedi.
Yeah, well, remember when I saw the film and you asked me to give you a call.
Yeah.
We used to have spoiler-free discussions because I'd see it like 6 hours or 7 hours before you.
Yeah.
And the first thing I said to you, I said, you ain't going to like it.
Yeah.
It's just an hour of damage control and just a mishmash of nothing. I mean, even to the point that Emperor Palpatine, the guy who went through all of the prequels, planning his exact moment as to when he was going to come back, just suddenly decides to announce to the entire galaxy that he's returned.
16 hours before he wins.
Yeah.
Had he just kept his mouth shut.
How did he announce it? Did he send like a hologram to onto the Galaxy Newsnet?
I think he sent
did
out
it
a
on
broadcast. Yeah, I was gonna say
Fortnite.
Fortnite answered that question. Yeah,
Yeah.
which was
Why-
kind of
why?
weird. They
Just
yeah,
raise your
why?
fleet and decimate
was-
planets.
he
Just
was
raise your
bragging.
fleet, just decimate things. Oh, terrible.
It's
Absolutely terrible.
the plan was cool, but him announcing it 16 hours before would just it was completely out of character for Palpatine. I mean,
Yeah.
the plan was cool and Palpatine was cool, but just him announcing it was completely out of character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you and I have said before. You know, I can look at all three movies and think, okay, yeah, I can sit and watch them all. There's great moments in all three of these movies. In fact, I could watch each movie independently and say, that's a good movie, that's a good movie, and that's a good movie. Do they flow as a trilogy? No. Do they flow as part of a 40-year saga? Absolutely not. The last film retcons the entire saga. You know, you brought back Palpatine, fine, great, because they announced that in the trailer, for Christ's sake. And I thought, great, they're doing that in the trailer. What are they hiding? We're focused on Palpatine. What are they hiding? They're hiding Hayden Christensen. They're hiding that because it's the chosen one. You know, we saw Vader, Anakin as Vader, whatever, toss Palpatine down the shaft of the Death Star. And when she was doing that, be with me, be with me, be with me, I was expecting at the end, we've seen, I'm not the only one, we've seen fan edits all over the place where when she says, be with me, and all the Jedi appear behind her. And me, I was expecting something along the lines of Siege of Lothal, you know, where Ahsoka puts her hand out in the Force to see if she can sense the presence of the person flying the TIE fighter. And Kanan says, well, what can I do? And she says, remember your training. And he puts his hand on her shoulder. I was expecting to see Rey stretch her hand out and be with me, be with me, be with me. All these Jedi appear behind her, and where her arm is outstretched, I was expecting to see materialize Hayden Christensen with her hand on his shoulder, where Palpatine says, I am all the Sith. And he comes in and says, and I am the chosen one. And just ends him. Not a lightsaber, just doesn't need a lightsaber. Just reaches out into Palpatine's heart and just blasts him with the Force and just ends him straight away. That was the thing that I was waiting for.
I still think it'd be cool had Luke told Rey on Octu, we've tried this before. We've tried getting rid of Palpatine. We killed him physically, but he still came back. You take care of him on your side of the veil, and then we'll take care of him after that. And not say who we are, you know what I mean? Just say we'll take care of him when he gets to this side. And then you see Rey do the whole scene, where he gets obliterated. But then you cut to the netherworld of the Force, and you see Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda and Qui-Gon and Luke, and they're all fighting him, literally this battle inside the Force itself, taking out the very spirit of Palpatine instead of just physically. I would have killed to have seen something like that.
Yeah. Some of the old EU novels, these are some of the later novels, had something similar where this was after Jason Solo. This was after his death. So it was quite late on in the EU franchise where I think Luke, he goes to this sort of, it's almost like a world between worlds, except instead of being stars, unlike we see in Rebels World Between Worlds, it's stars. It's got those white lines on the floor to sort of symbolize a path. It's written to describe more like Dagobah, right? Lots of mist, lots of water. No trees, just lots of mist and lots of water. And he can see all the Jedi of the past. He sees his wife, Mara Jade, standing there above the water. And he looks down under the water, and there's a tortured soul under the water, and it's Jason, his nephew. And that's what he sees as the sort of afterlife of the Force, which is exactly similar to what you've just described there. But I just couldn't believe they didn't do it, because I rested my entire hopes on the trilogy on that moment. It could have been a rocky couple of movies, fine. Yeah. But can they stick that landing? And they blew it.
They could have.
They blew it so
They
bad.
could have
so
kept.
Bad.
Yeah, they could have kept everything that they'd already done instead of retconning it. Even though the fans had this outrage, this outcry from it, they could have said, "Well, that's still what happened. So let's move forward from there and just try to make up for it." You know what I mean? Instead of trying to retcon it and fix what you already messed up, don't fix what you already messed up. Just move forward and make it better. Instead of fixing mistakes, learn from them. And I think it would have really made Episode 9 way more satisfactory. So, but yeah, I definitely think they tried to retcon Last Jedi. I definitely think that was an active retcon.
Let's go to our last question for the week. Brian Stone wrote in and wrote, quick mailbag question for you guys. Do you think that we'll ever leave the Skywalker saga behind completely? I'm talking books and games and comics and everything. Absolutely loved last week's episode, boys. Keep up the great work, and may the Force be with you. Thanks, Brian. I've got 3 words for you. I think the High Republic is going to be your answer there, and hopefully in January we'll see, besides Yoda, a new era of Star Wars, whether it's books, comics, future video games, who knows what else. I'm hopeful that we'll be heading into a new era in just about a month from now. What do you guys think?
I've had this conversation with Mr. Miller a couple of years ago. No, it wasn't a couple of years ago. That's how long this year feels. After the Rise of Skywalker, after Brian saw it, me and him had this conversation privately. I think if the High Republic completely fails and the franchise is on its last legs, yes, we'll see Skywalker again. And the reason why I believe that is, look, we all know the story of Darth Plagueis device. The manipulation of midichlorians to breed life. We saw Rey effectively do the same thing with Kylo, and we saw Kylo do the same thing with Rey. I think Rey knows full well she is pregnant, which is why she adopted the Skywalker name. We don't know that. We don't need to know that. Hopefully the High Republic is a massive success and we never get to revisit it. But I reckon that if it does fail and falls, it doesn't get the views that it wants or the attention that they hope to get, I think that'll be their ace in the hole. That will be their get out of jail free card. They can jump forward, I don't know how many years, and say, well, look, yeah, technically she is a Skywalker, or he, or whoever this child is going to be, because Jason Solo accomplished what his grandfather could never do. He did it with killing Snoke. Vader couldn't kill the Emperor. Anakin defeated the Emperor to save his son, but Vader never wrested power for himself. He couldn't do it. Snoke didn't stand a chance against Ben. Oh yeah, when Ben was unbalanced, sure, certainly. But when Ben was focused and he knew full well that this guy, this lanky sod, has been having me on all this time, that Skywalker focus, that Skywalker rage kicked in, and he just ended Snoke without a second thought, and Snoke had no idea it was coming. And I think Kylo achieved more than what his grandfather ever could have achieved. Saved the one that he loved. Maybe he didn't necessarily love Rey, but he certainly admired her and had feelings for her. And I think in passing on his essence to her, when he's holding her by the womb when he's doing it, transferred his own essence into her. And I think she knows she's pregnant. She's adopted the name Skywalker to keep that name running. So the child, which would be born of Skywalker blood, would also have the name. It might be something that we never see. Hopefully we don't, because hopefully the High Republic is a success. We all love it and we all think it's great. But I think if that fails, $4 billion they paid for this, $4 billion, they've got to have a get out of jail free card. And I think that is the get out of jail free card. That fact that Rey is pregnant, we don't know that. She knows that. She's adopted the name Skywalker. And if it all falls flat on its ass, they'll follow her story. Maybe not necessarily Rey's story. We can comic book that, because Daisy might not ever want to come back to the saga. They can comic book that like they did in the expanded universe with Cade Skywalker, like the great-great-grandson of Luke Skywalker. No idea who the rest of his family is, because I never read the comics. It's only the novels that I had for the EU. And it could very well be a case that we do get a continuation of the Skywalker saga, but only as a last-ditch resort to get the franchise off the ground if the High Republic falls flat on its face.
Yeah, I agree. I think it all depends on how High Republic is received. And I'm very optimistic about High Republic because, I mean,
Me too.
When
Looking forward to it.
When you look at the films that everybody loved so much that Disney's done so far, right? So the sequel trilogy itself, we'll call it that for argument's sake, wasn't received real great. Solo at first wasn't received real great, but Rogue One was received really, really well. And I think what Rogue One had that the others didn't was it was introducing new characters that wasn't piggybacking off of characters we already knew. I mean, there were some there, but it wasn't dependent on them. You know, with the sequel trilogy, you had Leia there through the whole thing. You had Luke there, you had Han, but with Rogue One, it was a new set of characters. It was a time zone that we'd seen before, but it was a new story that we'd never seen. They had creative freedom to do whatever they wanted to do, and I think it really soared. With High Republic, you're going to an era where, yes, you have a character that we know from the classics, Yoda, but it's a very different Yoda. But it's new characters that they're coming up with that are, they're coming up with stories themselves. They're not piggybacking and they're not building off of something that was already there before. I think this is Lucasfilm's perfect opportunity to show what they can actually do with Star Wars. And if they can get this off the ground and really make something of it, there's a possibility you leave the Skywalker saga behind. And from now on, Star Wars is just the High Republic. And like Jay said, yeah, if it gets to the point where it's getting watered down or, fans aren't responding the way they used to when it first came out, I think then, yeah, you go back to the well and you say, well, hey guys, we've got this big announcement coming, Star Wars Episode 10. Everybody would lose their freaking minds. 10, 11 years down the road, now maybe not even that far, 7, 8 years down the road, Star Wars Episode 10. What? Are you serious? We're going back to this? Yes, awesome. And even the people who weren't excited about the sequel trilogy would be like, cool, well, let's go back and see what they can do now. We went this far back in time with these new characters. Let's go forward this much time now and see what they can do there and still continue the Skywalker name away from the Skywalkers that we knew and loved from the classics.
Well, and Brian, I like what you're thinking here. I do think, though, in 2021, they haven't announced a whole lot besides High Republic, but we know we're getting another Thrawn book. We know we're getting another Alphabet Squadron. And, I bet they'll reboot Darth Vader again because they know that these comics sell that have. Right now, we're still in the comics with Star Wars between Empire and Return of the Jedi, probably for another year or two. I don't know how well it's doing, but they know that by putting Luke and Leia and Han and Vader on the front of these covers for comics or novels, they know they're going to sell. So even if we are focusing more on a different time period, I don't see any time right now when it comes to maybe television shows like a cartoon or something else that you're going to get rid of Han, Leia, Luke, and Vader. I think they're still going to be around, maybe not, hopefully not as much, because we do want to get to these other eras. And going back to what you said about, I still hold it in my heart that for some reason in 2027 for the 50th anniversary, that's when number 10 is going to be released. I don't know why. I just feel like, we are such a short attention span and short patience that if we've waited since 2019 and, so many people do enjoy the character of Rey and some of these characters, that Disney's going to want to still bank on that and make it for a big anniversary year. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's just something I feel is going to be in the pipeline.
Well, they can piggyback off the hype too, because you wait that long to put out a continuation of the Skywalker saga after announcing that it's over, and you wait that long, people are going to lose their minds, and you use that hype, you ride that as far as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you stick it in the trailer. I am a Skywalker, like my grandfather before me. Bam. Everyone's going to be, what's going on?
And
One
if they
line,
want to
stick down the trailer.
And like you said, Richard, if they can't get Daisy Ridley back, you skip ahead 100 years or 200 years like High Republic's going backwards, and someone finds Luke and Leia's lightsabers on Tatooine. You start with a whole new cast. You start and you say Episode 10. It's not a Skywalker, but it's their, the lineage of the power of the lightsaber continuing on. It's that one connective tissue. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's just a get out of jail free card. I don't think. Hopefully, we never get to see it because that means High Republic is a success, and I want this to succeed. Me too. I love Star Wars. I'm not going to pray that it dribbles into nothing, but I do think that if it doesn't succeed, that is their get out of jail free card. They've paid $4 billion for this franchise. They're not going to rest all their eggs in one basket. And yeah, Daisy Ridley might not come back, but there's nothing to say. Okay, well, we'll just jump forward 100 years. We've got this force sensitive being, girl or boy, it doesn't matter. They'll take what they've hopefully they've listened to, they've seen the quality of Favreau and Filoni. Filoni, has been writing Star Wars for over a decade at this point, and they can say, okay, well, look, if Filoni's still involved with the company, it's okay. Well, would you then pen a trilogy? This is going to be, an offspring of Rey, not necessarily a direct offspring. It could be several generations down the line. Separate that middle ground. We'll just comic book the lot because Daisy really doesn't want to come back, or we want to jump so far ahead that we haven't got to bother with the drama. We can just have a fresh start, but it'll be a Skywalker because Rey took that name, and the genetics of midichlorians of that baby was half Skywalker. It was, well, it would be quarter Skywalker. It would be Leia, Han, and then Rey's father and mother. So you'd have 1/4 Skywalker blood in this child. As I said, I don't think we'll ever see her. I think it's just nothing more than a get out of jail free card if the whole thing falls flat on its face. And hopefully we don't get to see her. Hopefully High Republic is a big success and we can just carry on with that. I would like to see an episode X. I honestly thought that the trilogy, the sequel trilogy, could have just said, they could have just said, look, we've got a lot of story to tell. We're capping on 40 years. Do you want a rush job, or do you want to wait for an episode X in 2 years' time? I'm waiting for an episode X in 2 years' time. I don't know about you guys. I'm waiting for episode X. I would be more than, just because the last two trilogies have been 3 movies, doesn't mean to say that the sequel trilogy has to be 3 movies. Star Wars stopped being a trilogy in 1999 when episode 1 came out. Then it stopped being a trilogy. It's a saga. I know we all bracket it down as OT, original trilogy, PT, prequel trilogy, and ST, sequel trilogy, but it hasn't been a trilogy for over 20 years. So an episode X, I think, would have been great to see. I don't think we'll see her, and if we do, hey, I'll be first in line to get my ticket. Of course I am. Midnight showing, like I have done for the last Disney films that have come out. I'll be midnight showing, provided I'm not old and decrepit. But I don't think we'll see her. And I'm hoping that we don't get to see her. I'm hoping the High Republic is a big success and we can move on from there with a clean slate and hopefully gets to a point where High Republic meets Phantom Menace, I suppose. It's only 200 years. You look at the Old Republic and the Legends novels, they were 25,000 years back they go. The Darth Bane is like 10, 12,000 years before the original movie. We're only going back 200 years. It's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time to play with if you think about it.
But it's just far enough removed where they have that creative freedom.
Oh yeah, that's it. They got their freedom, but then, I mean, how old was Darth Plagueis? Because I have no idea how long his species can live for.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Is he alive? Is he I can't think of what it is. Is he a moon? I can't think of what the name of the race is now.
He's from the same planet as the Banking Clan, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just can't think of.
I can't think of what they were called. Yeah, there's probably people screaming at us right now because we can't remember what he was.
Cut me some slack. It's 10 to 4 in the morning for me. You are going to get to a point where Old High Republic meets Episode 1 eventually. I mean, you look at the 1991, right, when Timothy Zahn's novels came out, the first one. And then you look at Crucible, which I think was published in like maybe 2010. That was, I think, 40 years after the Battle of Yavin. Now, you're talking there 20 years of our time to make 40, 50 years of Star Wars novels. So you're only looking at about, 40 years in our lifetime where High Republic content falls into line with Episode 1. So we'll see where it goes, because they haven't left a lot of time to play with. They've left enough to play with human time. The human character's not going to live 200 years into they're not, things like, you just said, you've got Yoda. Yoda's going to be in there. Mm-hmm. Yaddle's going to have to be in there. But I don't know with the Yoda species how they age. We know that Grogu, right, is 50 years in our life cycles, right? He's 50, of our years. Yet he's still seen as a toddler. Now, what happens in the next 50 years? Because Yoda started training Jedi when he was 100 years of age. Mm-hmm. Are you trying to tell me that Grogu? Because they say Grogu was what? It's about 2.5 in whatever species age, whatever the species is called, because we don't know. He's about 2.5 years of age. So am I expected to believe that at the age of 5, Yoda was training Jedi? Because he says in Empire Strikes Back.
Assume since the Purge, Order 66, till Din picks him up in the chapter 1, he probably hasn't been trained, hasn't had much social interaction, maybe.
Yeah,
so maybe
true. He's probably regressed. Yeah, he's probably regressed. I mean, who wouldn't be? You know, you take a child in real life, and you see on the news where somebody would get neglected for only for like two years, less than a year, 12 months of their life at such a young age, and they're so far behind in life because their brain hasn't just absorbed that knowledge. So it's kind of, it's very possible. I would expect Grogu to have regressed, and we see elements of that regression in the episodes where he's afraid to use the Force. He's afraid to reach out and connect to the Force, which is why he's got that attachment to Din. Again, completely off topic. Wrap it back around. No, I don't think we will see the future of the Skywalkers unless, of course, Star Wars is on its deathbed. In which case they'll pull out, they get on a jail-free card and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, this is what happened. Rey was pregnant," because Kylo, Ben Solo, did the whole midichlorian transfer onto Rey, which Vader could never do to save the one he loved, and impregnated Rey as a result.
I do think, like we talked about earlier, Brian, I think, they can try to do the High Republic, they can go in the future, they can go in the past. I think Disney's still going to keep selling these products and keep it around the comics and novels of things that they know will sell. I mean, it's still, as much as it is an entertainment form for us, they realize it's still a business. And like Richard said, they paid $4 billion, and I think they've made that. I mean, they've clearly made that back by now, but they want to keep making money off of it. Even looking at Mandalorian, like the first season was very independent. It was very, a lot of new characters. And then season 2, I'm not complaining because, I'm feeling the payoff of years of watching and reading these different books and shows. And I feel like I'm getting the payoff with some of these characters seeing live action. But I do think we'll see an episode 10 at some point. I do think, a couple years from now or however long they want to wait, I think it's only a matter of time. You can say the Skywalker is going to end again because they told us that in 2005 and they told us that again in 2019. I do think we'll see more of, even if it's a, animated show or live action between 6 and 7, we're going to see more of Han, Luke, and Leia. There's so much more time in their timeline that they're still going to explore because they know they can make money off of it. I do want to see more, and I'm excited for High Republic. I hope that's the big push next year. I hope it's successful. I hope that we can see more time periods, whether we see a new version of the Old Republic or, there's thousands of years worth of stories for Jedi, for Sith. I want to see something different when the films do come back to theaters, whether it's Taika Waititi's film, whether it's Rian Johnson, if he still finishes his films. There's a lot more story and potential outside of the Skywalker saga I want to explore, but I agree with Richard. Like, this is going to be their get out of jail free card, and they're still gonna put out Skywalker stuff, even if they said it's done for now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. They're never going to leave it behind. I really don't think they're ever going to be completely honest. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode, guys. Hey, first off, I wanted to say to you guys, thanks for taking the lead on this episode because, like I said at the beginning, I wasn't feeling real great. Like I told them before we started recording, I felt like I had Velcro in the back of my throat. And I really didn't want to go a week without putting out an episode. So thank you guys very much for taking the lead on that and making sure this episode rocked. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And thank you guys and gals for tuning in this week. I sure appreciate it. If you're new to the podcast and you like what you hear, be sure to give us a follow on whatever app or site you're listening in on. Check out the YouTube channel for upcoming reviews, interviews, and reaction videos, as well as the Facebook page to stay up to date on what's going on with the Star Wars Canon Podcast. Be sure to check out the Patreon account as well if you'd like to help support the Canon Podcast in any way. If you want to get a question on the podcast, you can send it to us through the Star Wars Canon Library mobile app. You can email it to us on starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you have the Anchor app, you can record a voice message, and send it to us that way. All those links can be found in the description of this episode. Like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, this is the Canon Crew signing off. May the Force be with you guys.
Always.